How unbearable is Yuan Yang now? Just as much as Gu Qingpei would come to adore him later. Watch Gu Qingpei tame the little wolf dog online. Pure Love 188 series, head-on confrontation. Today is Gu Qingpei's first day as CEO at Joyi Group. He wore a crisp suit and snow-white shirt, with jet black hair and handsome features. Wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, he walked with ease, and the smile on his lips was simply captivating. Just as he pushed open the office door, a spirited man in his 50s walked over to him. Gu Qingpei extended his hand with a hearty smile. "Good morning, Director Yuan." Yuan Lijiang turned to look at Yuan Yang. "You brat, come over and introduce yourself." Yuan Yang was extremely frustrated. He snorted with displeasure, eyeing Gu Qingpei up and down. With his arms crossed, his mind raced. Following such a pretentious guy to learn? Truly infuriating. Yuan Lijiang brought his son over today to work and learn from Gu Qingpei. Seeing Yuan Yang's arrogant expression, Gu Qingpei was slightly unsettled. This young master Yuan was indeed handsome but seemed like a tough character with a fiery temper. Not easy to handle. Without giving Gu Qingpei a chance to refuse, Yuan Lijiang said, "Qingpei, mistakenly, my brother trusts you, take your nephew under your wing." This decision would be something Yuan Lijiang would regret in the future. Yuan Yang was unhappy seeing their act, thinking, "I'm not a soccer ball for you to kick around." Watching his father leave, Yuan Yang arrogantly said to Gu Qingpei, "Hey, you do your thing, I'll do mine. Just pretend for my dad's sake, and don't cause me any trouble." Gu Qingpei shook his head at Yuan Yang. "Let's keep it formal in the company. Privately, you can call me uncle." Yuan Yang sat like a rogue on the desk, ice cold with a hint of sarcasm. "How old are you, for me to call you uncle?" Gu Qingpei calmly replied, 33. After hearing this, Yuan Yang furiously rushed at Gu Qingpei, shouting, "You made me call you uncle when I was 11 years younger than you. What's next? Should I call you dad as you get older?" This was the first time Gu Qingpei and Yuan Yang met, and the situation was extremely awkward. "Little wolf dog, for your future happiness, could you perhaps temper your explosive temper?" The Pure Love 188 series starts with a pointed confrontation. Gu Qingpei, hearing Yuan Yang's irrational anger, wasn't upset about the idea of being called dad as he grew older. He elegantly picked up a teacup, took a sip, and said, "Drop your young master's temper and work well with me. Your dad knows your every move better than I do." Yuan Yang desperately suppressed his rage as he turned and walked towards the door. "Where are you going?" Gu Qingpei asked, but Yuan Yang ignored him. Gu Qingpei quickly stepped forward, reaching out to grab Yuan Yang's shoulder. Yuan Yang reflexively grabbed Gu Qingpei's wrist, twisting his arm behind his back and firmly restraining him. Surprise flashed across Gu Qingpei's face. He hadn't expected the young man's grip to be as strong as a vice. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "What, planning to fight with me already?" Yuan Yang deeply furrowed his brow and released his hand. "Don't you dare pat me on the back again." Gu Qingpei straightened up, a trace of embarrassment on his face. He adjusted his sleeve and sighed. "If you're not planning to manage the company, what do you want to do? Lead troops into battle?" Gu Qingpei didn't wait for Yuan Yang's response and leisurely sat on the sofa. "Too bad it's peacetime now. Your grand ambitions have no place." Gu Qingpei chuckled again. "Also, that outfit won't do. You can't wear jeans to work. Bring me your resume tomorrow." Yuan Yang was unimpressed by Gu Qingpei's words. "At least I don't spend all day at work watching stock markets, and I don't have a resume." Gu Qingpei laughed. "No problem, just write it up tonight." He walked past Yuan Yang at a leisurely pace. "Follow me and familiarize yourself with the company environment." Looking at Gu Qingpei's unhurried temperament, Yuan Yang felt as uncomfortable as punching cotton. The master dog trainer Gu Qingpei is teasing the young wolf dog Yuan Chang online. How will this young wolf dog vent his anger? Pure AI 188 series, The Showdown. Gu Qingpei called Yuan Yang to tour the company. Gu Qingpei, like a nagging old mother, kept talking. "Young Master Yuan, your attitude is as big as the sky, it's not conducive to cooperation. Yuan Yang is somewhat irritable and hard to work with. You should ask my dad not to let me come." Gu Qingpei, the master of shifting responsibility, said, "Oh, I just promised Director Yuan, can't go back on it now." "Why don't you talk to him?" Yuan Yang shouted at Gu Qingpei. "If my words had any effect, I wouldn't be wasting time babbling with you here." Yuan Yang's temper flared as he pulled open the office door. From behind came Gu Qingpei's voice. "It would be best for you to calm down and spend some time at the company. Nothing you do is a waste of time." Yuan Yang was so angry that he slammed the door without looking back. "Uncle can endure, but nephew can't." Gu Qingpei showed a fox-like smile and took out his phone to call Yuan Lijiang. Gu Qingpei then entered Yuan Lijiang's office, speaking bluntly. "Director Yuan, I'm willing to take on Yuan Yang, but we need 3 rules. First, you mustn't feel sorry for him when I teach him. Yuan Lijong immediately agreed, don't worry, this boy has suffered in the army. I also want him to train more. Gu Qingpei said unhurriedly, secondly, he can't spend family money anymore. He should spend only what he earns. Yuan Lijong replied, no problem, we won't spoil him. Gu Qingpei was still worried about this irritable young wolfdog. Director Yuan, he has been in the military, if it comes to a fight, I can't handle it. I only adhere to the ways of a gentleman. Yuan Lijong laughed and said, Yuan Yang knows his limits, no need to worry. Gu Qingpei, seeing his goal achieved, smiled like a fox again. Yuan Yang, trying to compete with me? You're too young for that. Yuan Yang, the young wolfdog, couldn't understand how Gu Qingpei managed to gain his father's trust so convincingly. Pure AI 188 series, The Showdown. Yuan Yang, filled with anger, pushed open Gu Qingpei's office door. Gu Qingpei feigned surprise and said, oh my. Gu Qingpei pretended to be surprised and said, wow, why are you back? Had a change of heart? Yuan Yang approached Gu Qingpei step by step. If you weren't handsome, this expression full of disdain would probably scare away thousands of girls. What are you pretending for? It was you who called my dad, right? Yuan Yang glared at Gu Qingpei. With his height of 1.9 meters, grabbing Gu Qingpei's collar felt quite intimidating. Gu Qingpei said with a wry smile, I've been wronged. I've told you before, Director Yuan knows about your every move better than I do. You should calm down and seriously consider your parents' intentions. You should learn to understand them. Yuan Yang squinted his eyes, unable to discern whether Gu Qingpei's words were true or false. But he realized that simply walking away wasn't an option. Gu Qingpei was about to raise his hand smilingly, but suddenly stopped. I see you're just being stubborn with Director Yuan. It would be great if you could think it through. Ah, it's already noon. Let's go have lunch. I know a Sichuan restaurant nearby that's very authentic. You served in Sichuan, right? How do you know? Yuan Yang asked heavily. Gu Qingpei laughed, I've heard about it. Come on, young man, don't be sulking all the time. He wanted to pull Yuan Yang's arm but, recalling the recent incident, withdrew his hand and instead gestured politely. Gu Qingpei and Yuan Yang entered the restaurant. Gu Qingpei smiled and said, what do you want to eat? It's my treat. Yuan Yang glanced around and said, sure, I have a friend nearby. I'll call him to join us. Gu Qingpei looked at the menu and asked Yuan Yang, how many friends do you have? Should we wait for them to order? Before Yuan Yang could answer, the restaurant's door was pushed open. Yuan Yang chuckled, hey, why are you sitting by the window? In case a girl walks by and falls head over heels for you? Yuan Yang joked back, if a girl falls head over heels, it would be because she was scared by you hooligans. Hurry over. Who is this? Several people came over, feigning surprise at Gu Qingpei. Yuan Yang showed a ruffian-like smile and said, my boss. After saying that, he watched Gu Qingpei with a look of anticipation for the drama. Yuan Yang originally intended to collude with his friends to embarrass Gu Qingpei. What storms hasn't Gu Qingpei seen before? Let's see how our Gu Tianxian can trick these little wolves. In the Pure AI 188 series of confrontations, after Yuan Yang introduced him, Gu Qingpei courteously extended his hand to greet the handsome guys. Hello, I'm Gu Qingpei. One of the handsome guys firmly grasped Gu Qingpei's hand. Hello, increasing the strength of his grip slightly. Gu Qingpei could tell it was intentional. With a calm smile, he said, wow, young man, you have a strong grip. The handsome guy, somewhat embarrassed, smiled awkwardly and released his hand. Yuan Yang observed Gu Qingpei with displeasure. When their eyes met, Yuan Yang revealed a sinister smile. Just when everyone was about to toast, Gu Qingpei said, sorry, everyone, I have a severe allergy to alcohol. I'll just drink tea instead. Yuan Yang raised an eyebrow at Gu Qingpei. President Gu, I brought so many friends over today, and you're giving us no face. Come on, have a drink. Gu Qingpei didn't heed Yuan Yang, he merely raised his cup. Today, seeing so many vibrant young people, I'll substitute tea for alcohol. Please feel free. Gu Qingpei unhesitatingly finished his drink. The handsome guys present had a face full of disbelief. Their plan to get him drunk failed. Everyone was engaged in lively interactions, only Yuan Yang was somewhat distracted. It seems another plan is needed. Wow, what happened? These people were so amused by Gu Qingpei that Yuan Yang heard someone say, President Gu, you have a keen eye. Hearing this, Yuan Yang felt somewhat annoyed. At this time, Gu Qingpei was seriously reading people's palms. Gu Qingpei amused everyone to the extent that they eagerly extended their hands for him to read. Gu Qingpei's eloquence truly was exceptional, making everyone exceedingly happy. The meal was filled with joy, and in the end, it was Yuan Yang's friend who, red-faced and neck-bulging, grabbed the bill to pay. After the plan failed, Yuan Yang was enveloped in gloom, realizing he needed to plan again. This guy isn't easy to deal with. Oh sister, Yuan Yang, you think you can contend with Gu Qingpei, but you're really too green. Gu Qingpei knew Yuan Yang wanted him to make a mistake. How could Gu the Fox suffer a loss? Purely in the 88th series of direct confrontations, Gu Qingpei continued to use the topic of reading palms to get close to Yuan Yang's friends, winning over several admirers. After a satisfying meal, everyone felt as if meeting Gu was a long-awaited encounter. The gathering dispersed with a sense of reluctance. Gu Qingpei called out, "Yuan Yang, let's go back." Yuan Yang sarcastically commended his skills, then doubtfully said he didn't believe Gu Qingpei was allergic to alcohol. Gu Qingpei casually shrugged, "My allergy is seasonal, including to alcohol." Yuan Yang didn't believe it at all, saying, "Today, I gave you face because my friend is here." Then, gritting his teeth, Yuan Yang approached Gu Qingpei, "Next time you spout nonsense, I'll force it down your throat." Yuan Yang's fury was palpable from 800 kilometers away. Gu Qingpei nervously said, "If the people you bring turn to force me, I'll have to be carried out." Yuan Yang squinted at Gu Qingpei, "When did I say I was going to force you?" Gu Qingpei's face turned stern, hands in his pockets, standing next to Yuan Yang and coldly said, "If you dare, let's have a one-on-one. No external help." Yuan Yang sneered, "You want to compete in drinking? No problem, let's find a time to properly spar." Gu Qingpei laughed lightly, "It's a deal. Can we go back to the company now?" Gu Qingpei, who has a slight obsession with cleanliness, entered the office, loosening his tie while telling Yuan Yang, "As of today, you are my assistant and driver." Yuan Yang asked angrily what he meant by that. When Yuan Yang saw Gu Qingpei unbuttoning his white shirt, he turned his head away and disdainfully asked why Gu Qingpei was taking off his clothes. Gu Qingpei, with a calm expression, said, "Lunch had a strong smell. I'm changing clothes. You can wait here." Yuan Yang rushed forward before he finished speaking, grabbing the shirt Gu Qingpei had just changed into and said, "Why should I be your driver? What makes you so capable?" Yuan Yang, whose face turned pale with anger, was quite intimidating with his 1.9-meter height and strong grip. There was a sound of Gu Tianxian's clothes buttons joyfully popped off, leaving him exposed with no buttons to fasten. Yuan Yang's fiery temper, like a little wolfdog, is unmatched. Even the old fox Gu Qingpei is a bit flustered and has to warn him to let go, or he'll shout for help. In this series of confrontations, Gu Qingpei, looking at the angry expression on that bold face, decides to smooth things over. He begins to speak, saying, "Don't be impulsive. Focus on doing the job at hand well instead of aiming too high." Gu Qingpei looks at his shirt with the buttons torn off and simply holds the front of his shirt together. "You don't want to be an assistant or a driver? What do you think you can do? If you were the boss, could you manage people? Could you manage a company?" Yuan Yang sits dominantly on the sofa, no longer wishing to argue with Gu Qingpei. With eyes closed, he says uninterestedly, "I don't want to be anything. I'll just stay here on duty, choose a place to sit, and you can pretend I don't exist." Gu Qingpei shakes his head, "Young Master Yuan, I promised Mr. Yuan to help you get on track. I'm a very responsible person." Gu Qingpei changes his clothes. Turning around, he sees Yuan Yang sitting on the sofa with eyes closed, resting, his long legs casually stretched out. His languid appearance is indeed pleasing to the eye. Gu Qingpei squints and admires for a couple of seconds, then says to Yuan Yang, "Let's go, it's time." Yuan Yang opens his eyes, giving Gu Qingpei a provocative glare and asking where they're going. At this moment, Gu Qingpei, holding documents and with a hand in his pocket, smiles and says, "To a meeting." Yuan Yang gives him a sidelong glance, reluctantly and irritatedly standing up to follow Gu Qingpei out. When they arrive at the conference room, all the management staff are already seated and waiting. As soon as Gu Qingpei enters the room, he greets them with a smile, "Hello, everyone." The room immediately erupts in enthusiastic applause. After introducing himself, Gu Qingpei begins his speech about his illustrious journey and his future plans for the company. Everyone was stirred by Gu Qingpei's impassioned speech, everyone except Yuan Yang, who was internally cursing Gu Qingpei, annoyed to death, snorting at his pretentiousness. You guess, after being reprimanded by Gu Qingpei, will Yuan Yang, this hot-headed little wolfdog without a brain, jump over the wall in desperation? How could he ever stand a chance against Gu the Celestial, in this pure love series of tit-for-tat? The moment Gu Qingpei stepped into the meeting room, he started to sell dreams to the employees, radiating an elite aura that drew applause and admiring whispers. When Gu Qingpei had the administrative department's Zhang Xia distribute the management system to everyone, Gu Qingpei teased Yuan Yang a bit, who was extremely impatient at the time. Yuan Yang glanced at the work manual with disdain, and, in a fit of rage, tore the work manual placed in front of him to shreds. Seeing this, Gu Qingpei suddenly stated seriously that the company would treat everyone equally, casting a meaningful look at Yuan Yang. After the meeting, everyone hurried out, leaving only Gu Qingpei and Yuan Yang. Yuan Yang suddenly got up in irritation, turned around to leave, and when Gu Qingpei asked where he was going, Yuan Yang mumbled something about going home to sleep, then cast a glance back at Gu Qingpei and headed for the door. Gu Qingpei followed and said, "No, you can't just leave your post." Yuan Yang, furious, with veins popping on his forehead and fists clenched cracklingly, tightened his fist and said, "Mr. Gu, by saying all this, are you trying to tell me you want to control me?" Gu Qingpei flashed a wicked smile. "You want to hit me? Then you better go easy, or it won't be easy to explain to Director Yuan." Finally, Yuan Yang pushed Gu Qingpei away. "Mr. Gu, since you dare to challenge me, be prepared. Let's see how brave you really are." Gu Qingpei was not afraid at all. He was actually hoping Yuan Yang would take a swing at him, so he had an excuse. He simply smiled slightly. "I'm waiting whenever you're ready." Yuan Yang was frustrated by Gu Qingpei's unyielding attitude. Yuan Yang had no choice but to follow Gu Qingpei back to the office, where Yuan Yang couldn't be bothered to care, and Gu Qingpei sat down directly on the sofa. He casually placed his feet on the coffee table and closed his eyes as if to daydream, while Gu Qingpei opened his eyes and observed Yuan Yang. "This kid is actually quite handsome, just has an annoying personality." Gu Qingpei said to Yuan Yang, "If you want to sleep, go sleep inside. There's a bed." "Sleeping on my sofa, what does that look like?" Suddenly, Yuan Yang stood up, walked around the desk without any courtesy, passing by Gu Qingpei, and entered the inner nap room. Gu Tianxian sat reclined in the office chair, his mind racing, feeling like he was taking care of a child. He took a deep breath. "Let's observe for a few more days." While Gu Qingpei was resting with his eyes closed, he suddenly opened them and without hesitation picked up the phone to ask Director Yuan, "Is the funding for Yuan Yang provided by you?" Yuan Lijiang replied, "He and his friends have a few businesses, so he's not short of money. But the initial investment funds were from me." He paused slightly. "You need this too?" Gu Qingpei chuckled. "Director Yuan, to make him obey, you can't let him have money to spend, otherwise he won't worry about anything." Yuan Lijiang thought it made sense and agreed to let Yuan Yang go home today. After hanging up the phone, Gu Qingpei felt much happier. He held some documents in his hand, his mind elsewhere, imagining Yuan Yang storming away from home angrily, and chuckled. Yuan Yang's irritated look must be very interesting. It turns out Gu Qingpei's actions had a precedent. Below is a passage written by Shui Qiancheng. Let me share a secret about this book. The character Gu Qingpei is the only one based on a real person among all my books. He's someone I know in real life, well-educated, promising, and young. When I met him, I was so inspired, and that's how we got the beloved CEO Gu. Did you find this little surprise exciting? See you in the comments. In the Pure Love 188 series, Needle vs. Sword, Gu Qingpei checked his watch. It was already 4 o'clock. He wondered why Yuan Yang was still asleep. Gu Qingpei had no choice but to open the bedroom door, and he was stunned for exactly 21 seconds. Yuan Yang was only wearing underwear, with a flawless figure. Gu Qingpei, adhering to the principle of why not look if you can, took an extra 2 seconds to admire. At that moment, Yuan Yang woke up to the noise, opened his eyes warily, and turned to look at him. Gu Qingpei turned his head and coughed lightly, pretending to be calm. "You really treat this like your own home, even taking off your clothes." Yuan Yang couldn't be bothered to explain, turned over, covered himself with the blanket, and impatiently said, "Get lost." Gu Qingpei, without a second thought, reached out to pull Yuan Yang's blanket off, saying, "You're muddled in sleep. This is my bed you're sleeping in." His hand hadn't even touched the blanket yet. Before his hand even touched the corner, Yuan Yang suddenly turned around, under Gu Qingpei's astonished gaze. He grabbed his hand and violently pushed him down onto the bed. Yuan Yang sprang up in one move, pinning down Gu Qingpei and looking down on him from above. Gu Qingpei's eyes widened as he sternly shouted, "Let go of me. Are you crazy?" Yuan Yang roared back, "You're the crazy one. Don't you remember? I've told you 800 times. Can't you understand? Don't freaking slap me from behind." Pinned down by Yuan Yang, Gu Qingpei struggled and warned Yuan Yang to let him go. Yuan Yang, seeing Gu Qingpei subdued by his move, provocatively said, "Mr. Gu, you really should exercise more. Such little strength. How are you going to compete with me in the future?" Gu Qingpei squinted and chuckled. How about this, Yuan, next time include me in your workouts, otherwise, your days at the company will be so boring. Yuan Yang disdainfully scoffed, fight with you? With that pretentious act of yours, one punch and you're down, and you want to work out together? Gu Qingpei began to lose his temper, yelling at Yuan Yang to get off him immediately. His kicking foot was blocked by Yuan Yang. Mr. Gu, you want to fight me? I'm telling you, Gu Qingpei, although I don't want to go against my dad's wishes right now, don't push me too far. I'm capable of anything. Yuan Yang slowly leaned towards Gu Qingpei, staring at his handsome face and chuckled lightly, looking like someone who swears a lot. You're just too freaking foolish. Don't worry, our rivalry has just begun. Actually, when Yuan Yang first met Gu Qingpei, he thought that Gu was quite good-looking, but that pretentious, elite demeanor really annoyed him. Now, Gu Qingpei even wants him to be his driver. Feeling extremely annoyed, in the Pure Love Series 188 showdown, Yuan Yang took me home. The company car assigned to me won't arrive until next week, so let's use your car first. I will reimburse you for the fuel. Gu Qingpei left the office without giving Yuan Yang a chance to rebut. After cursing Gu Qingpei's entire family in his mind, Yuan Yang decided to tolerate him for a moment, enduring this idiot for now and waiting for the opportunity to make Gu Qingpei regret underestimating him. Yuan Yang intentionally bumped into Gu Qingpei's shoulder, saying softly, fine, I'll be your driver. As long as you sit tight. Yuan Yang's car quite matched his personality, a rugged and imposing Hummer. Initially planning to sit in the back, Gu Qingpei instead walked around to the passenger seat. Yuan Yang, mocking, said, such a high-ranking leader, sitting here? Gu Qingpei sneered, I've actually never ridden in a Hummer. I think the view from the front must be great. Let's experience it. After saying the address, Yuan Yang started the car, and the powerful Hummer smoothly took off. Gu Qingpei originally thought Yuan Yang would be the type to drive recklessly in speed, at least to intimidate him, but unexpectedly, Yuan Yang drove very steadily. Gu Qingpei couldn't help saying, I thought you liked to speed. Yuan Yang, without even looking, replied, you think it's smart to play around on the main road? Gu Qingpei smiled slightly, right, let's not go home yet. I'll take you out for a meal. Yuan Yang ignored him, just wanting to drop him off quickly and do his own thing. Gu Qingpei, noticing Yuan Yang's reluctance, said, if you don't want to eat, that's fine. Then let's go to the mall to buy a suit. You can't wear jeans to work tomorrow. Yuan Yang retorted, I'll solve it myself. Gu Qingpei, getting to know Yuan Yang's temper, insisted on seeing him buy it. Yuan Yang was furious, what are you, my mother? Did my dad hire you as a nanny? Gu Qingpei laughed mockingly, I'm getting a head start on learning how to take care of kids. But I suppose no child is as difficult as you. Yuan Yang sneered, the good part is yet to come. Just wait and see. Gu Qingpei said casually, great, can't wait. They then entered the mall. There weren't many people shopping. The two headed straight for the men's clothing section. Yuan Yang seemed particularly loath to shop for clothes. As soon as he entered, he said to the clerk, just bring me a set of whatever fits. No need to try. The clerk said in surprise, sir, you still need to try them on. You're quite tall, and some clothes might not be in your size. Yuan Yang rolled his eyes and said, just pick out a set that fits. I only need one set. Find something in the same size. The clerk, making a strange face, reluctantly picked out a set that seemed to fit and handed it to him. Yuan Yang's way of doing things had a military style, quick and efficient. He grabbed the clothes and went in. When Yuan Yang came out, the clerk was starstruck, thinking his physique was perfect for selling clothes. Anything looked good on him. Gu Qingpei smiled in admiration. Yuan Yang gave Gu Qingpei a cold look and said, Gu Qingpei, you're boring. Yuan Yang asked the clerk, this fits, right? The clerk, smitten, confirmed that it was a perfect fit. Yuan Yang was annoyed at wasting time on such things. Moreover, he was extremely impatient now. Gu Qingpei just wanted to get rid of him and picked out several sets of the same size as this one. Quickly, Gu Qingpei nodded, do you want to buy several sets? With your salary, you won't even be able to afford a shirt in the future. Yuan Yang, annoyed, felt like punching Gu Qingpei. You're the one who can't afford it. Given Gu Qingpei and Yuan Yang's tall figures, they must be a treat for the eyes of the shop assistants. While the clerk was picking out clothes, Gu Qingpei didn't just stand around, he also tried on 2 sets of clothes. He was the kind of customer clerks like the most, mature and handsome. He has a great physique, listens to their opinions earnestly, and discusses with them with a gentlemanly smile, finally buying everything he tried generously. The salesgirl secretly wipes the drool from the corner of her mouth. Oh, that Audi is so cool, really dashing. The moment he swiped the card was yet another level of cool. What kind of heavenly brother is this? Yuan Yang couldn't bear to look directly, his face full of disdain. Coming out of the mall, Gu Qingpei tries to get close and asks, Yuan, how about having a meal with Uncle Gu? Aren't you hungry? Yuan Yang glared at him, stop acting like you're old and respectable. Gu Qingpei thought helplessly that their relationship can't be eased. If the cub knew he was about to freeze his card, he'd probably hop mad. Yuan Yang drove Gu Qingpei home as fast as he could, not even sparing Gu Qingpei an extra glance. As they got off the car, Gu Qingpei said, I start work at 8:30, so pick me up at 7. Yuan Yang frowned, why do you need to go so early? Gu Qingpei leaned on the car, from my house to the office, considering traffic, it roughly takes 40 minutes. I also want to eat breakfast at the office. I'm setting the time generously because I'm worried you won't wake up. Oh, I forgot to ask, where do you live? Yuan Yang, holding back his annoyance, gritted his teeth and scoffed, not far. 7 o'clock it is then. As Gu Qingpei was about to close the car door, he suddenly remembered something. Oh, bring up the things I bought, will you? I still have to carry my computer. I still need to take the computer. Yuan Yang's eyes widened. Are you addicted to bossing people around? He angrily jumped out of the car, took Gu Qingpei's things from the back seat, and Gu Qingpei slightly nodded his head backwards. He said, this is what you should do as an assistant. You really don't understand anything. It's lucky you were born into a good family. Gu Qingpei turned his back for a moment, covering his mouth, trying not to laugh too conspicuously. Ah, still too naive, like a little dog barking. So amusing. Yuan Yang followed behind, his face filled with anger, carrying Gu Qingpei's purchases. After opening the door, Yuan Yang threw the purchases on the floor and looked around Gu Qingpei's house. The house was spotlessly clean, but it looked particularly deserted, as if no one lived there. Yuan Yang frowned and asked, you're not married? Gu Qingpei smiled and replied, divorced. Yuan Yang chuckled, I guessed as much. You're too good at pretending. Sooner or later, everyone will see through you. Gu Qingpei tilted his head and thought, don't say that, you actually make some sense. Yuan Yang spoke to Gu Qingpei in a mocking tone, everything settled, boss? Can I leave now? Gu Qingpei took off his coat, crossed his arms and looked at Yuan Yang, aren't you hungry? My cooking is pretty good. Won't you try it? Will Yuan Yang accept Gu Qingpei's behavior of a slap followed by a candy? Ah, Yuan Yang, do you not want a wife anymore? Now that conditions are difficult, aren't you afraid your wife with a bad temper might run off with someone else? No, wait, she's not your wife yet, so it's okay to show some temper. Pure confrontation in the AL-88 series. Yuan Yang was really annoyed, feeling like Gu Qingpei treated him like a fool with his pattern of a slap followed by a candy. Yuan Yang coldly said to Gu Qingpei, President Gu, you're really smooth with this approach of slapping then giving a date. Gu Qingpei stared at Yuan Yang, I'm your elder after all, I won't stoop to your level. Keep this sweet date for yourself. After saying that, Yuan Yang stopped paying attention to Gu Qingpei and turned to leave. Gu Qingpei watched Yuan Yang close the door and leave, shrugged his shoulders, and thought, this kid isn't that dumb and is not easy to deal with. Early the next morning, Gu Qingpei got downstairs punctually at 7 o'clock. Yuan Yang's car was indeed waiting at the spot where they got off yesterday. At this moment, standing beside the car like a car model, Gu Qingpei greeted with a smile, you're quite early. Have you had breakfast? Yuan Yang looked up, said he hadn't after extinguishing his cigarette butt, and then got into the car. Gu Qingpei followed and got into the passenger seat. I asked Lao Zhao, and there's breakfast at the company, quite lavish too. Let's have breakfast at the company from now on, Gu Qingpei tentatively asked. Didn't you share your work feelings with Director Yuan when you got home? Yuan Yang didn't even glance at Qingpei. I don't live with him, he said. Gu Qingpei glanced at him, thinking Yuan Lijian must not have had a heart-to-heart with him yet, otherwise, this kid wouldn't be so calm. Gu Qingpei, like a chatterbox, tried to make conversation again, how often do you go home? My parents live out of town, so I visit them every 1 or 2 months. Since you live so close, you should visit more often. Yuan Yang frowned, clearly annoyed, why are you so nagging? Yuan Yang was visibly upset. Having to see him early in the morning, then again at the company, and listening to his endless babble, Yuan Yang imagined stuffing his mouth with tape to shut him up, unable to vent his frustration. Yuan Yang's phone rang. It was a call from his childhood friend Peng Fong. Yuan Yang pressed the answer button, and from the other end came, what are you doing? Yuan Yang, visibly angry, said he was on his way to work. Hearing Yuan Yang mention he was going to work, Peng Fong almost split with laughter, did I hear that right? What work are you talking about? Weren't you eager to go back and fire the big guns? Yuan Yang, frustrated, responded, can I even fire them? My dad forced me to work at his company. Peng Fang became even more outrageous. Interesting, where are you? I'll come and watch. Yuan Yang, annoyed by his laughter, told Peng to get lost. I can't stay here much longer myself. At this moment, Ping Dog had laughed enough and said seriously, I think you can't last much longer either. But will your dad let you leave? My dad won't let me go, and he even gave me a stupid look. Talking about him makes me angry. Yuan Yang, feeling frustrated, couldn't help but share Gu Qingpei's story with Peng Dog after hearing it. Peng Fong tried to ask Yuan Yang if he needed help to teach Gu Qingpei a lesson. Yuan Yang, with anger in his voice, gritted his teeth and said, no need. If I, Yuan Yang, can't handle him, I'll take his last name. Gu Qingpei was teasing the little wolf dog like this, but it wasn't really teasing. Gu Qingpei was someone who hated trouble. Yuan Yang is someone who doesn't like to be controlled. Anyway, this time, our Gu Fox will have to use 49 tricks to deal with the little wolf dog in this Pure Love 188 series showdown. Peng Fong listened as Yuan Yang described Gu Qingpei's pretentious acts. Peng Fong laughed so hard he nearly split. It was too amusing. Yuan Yang, angry, hung up the phone and threw it on the desk in frustration. The phone rang again. It was Peng Fong, who felt he couldn't let his brother suffer, calling to invite him out for some fun and relaxation that evening. Staying in the office was really boring for Yuan Yang, so he started playing games. When he heard Gu Qingpei calling him, he just glanced over and ignored it. He picked up the headset on the desk, put it in his ears, and continued playing his game. Gu Qingpei called Yuan Yang twice with no response, so he pulled off his headset and said, come in. Yuan Yang, irritated by the disturbance, got up angrily and asked, what do you want? Gu Qingpei, without a friendly face, angrily asked why Yuan Yang didn't clock in that morning. Yuan Yang slammed his fist on the desk and stood up, you're always picking on me, aren't you? Gu Qingpei leaned back strategically, I don't target anyone. I require everyone in the company to abide by the rules and regulations, including you and me. Gu Qingpei pointed outside, go clock in now. I haven't been back long. A deduction of 50 yuan for being within an hour. Also, from now on, breakfast should be served within 20 minutes after I arrive at the office. Even if you don't eat, let me eat first. Don't you know any rules? Yuan Yang's fists clenched with a creaking sound, really wanting to grab him and give him a good beating. Gu Qingpei looked up at him, what are you stunned for? Go clock in. Yuan Yang, restraining the impulse to beat him, left before he could explode, and Gu Qingpei didn't feel awkward. Gu Qingpei said to Yuan Yang, this afternoon, follow Lao Zhao to the forest store. I heard that the car prepared for me has arrived early. Go check it out, and if it's fine, drive it back. Starting tomorrow, switch to that car. Yuan Yang coldly retorted, you have hands and feet, can't you drive yourself? Gu Qingpei challenged Yuan Yang's bottom line again, if I needed to drive myself, why would I hire a driver? This is part of your job. Handing Yuan Yang a work manual, he said, the attendance policy is out. Follow it strictly from now on. Any violations will be punished accordingly. Take a good look, Gu Qingpei added, there's an electronic version in the company email. You should also take a look at the things related to your own interests. After Yuan Yang left, Gu Qingpei secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed like he was challenging Yuan Yang's patience every day, but he always succeeded. He initially just hoped Yuan Yang would lose his temper and hit him a couple of times. He originally just hoped that Yuan Yang would lose his temper and hit him a few times so he could complain to Yuan Li Jiang, take his son home, and end it. If things could be resolved peacefully, Gu Qingpei did not want to be beaten. Now, Yuan Yang shows no signs of calming down nor has he started fighting, instead, he keeps enduring. Gu Qingpei is really worried that if this continues, one day it might lead to a severe outburst. Gu Qingpei has been divorced, isn't he gay? If Yuan Dog knows about this, what would his reaction be? Will Yuan Yang hold a grudge against Gu Qingpei for his past divorce in the future? Pure AI 188 Series Face-Off. Today, Gu Qingpei's ex-wife, Zhao Yuan, arranged a meeting with Gu Qingpei. Upon arriving at the meeting place, he saw Zhao Yuan already waiting there. Zhao Yuan hurriedly called out to him. Gu Qingpei walked towards her with a smile, why did you come so early? Although they had been divorced for many years, their relationship had remained good. They embraced warmly. Zhao Yuan had just arrived from the airport, coming directly without going home. Gu Qingpei took out a small velvet box from his pocket, haven't seen you in over half a year, this is for you. Zhao Yuan smiled and opened the box, it was a pair of delicate and beautiful diamond earrings, clearly of high value. Zhao Yuan gave him a smile. You're the most thoughtful man I've ever met. It's a pity you don't like women. Zhao Yuan looked up at Gu Qingpei with deep affection. She was not very beautiful, but she had charm. Gu Qingpei smiled and said, I really like you. You're smart and charming. Zhao Yuan burst into laughter. I heard you went to Yuan Li Zhang's company and even helped him with his son. Gu Qingpei shook his head helplessly, a child that's hard to manage. Indeed, Zhao Yuan was a woman he liked very much, but strictly speaking, it should be called admiration. Zhao Yuan started, Qingpei, I wanted to tell you today that I'm planning to get engaged. Gu Qingpei was initially stunned, then joy appeared on his face. Is that so? I really must congratulate you then. Gu Qingpei feels guilty towards Zhao Yuan. Before marrying her, Gu Qingpei didn't realize he wasn't interested in women. Later, pressured by his parents to get married, and with Zhao Yuan appearing at the right time, he ended up marrying her in a confused state. After more than a year of marriage, full of ups and downs and unhappiness, they finally realized there was a major issue. Both recognized that the problem was with his orientation. Zhao Yuan didn't blame Gu Qingpei and decisively ended the marriage. Gu Qingpei has always felt guilty towards Zhao Yuan. Gu Qingpei had also planned that if he didn't marry, he would have provided for Zhao Yuan for the rest of her life. After coming out of the cafe, Gu Qingpei saw Zhao Yuan off in her car and stood on the street for a long time, unable to snap out of it. Watching the car drive away, Gu Qingpei was actually happy for Zhao Yuan. As long as Zhao Yuan is happy, he could also let go of a major concern. After all, not knowing his own orientation and losing her was also a form of hurt. At this moment, Gu Qingpei chuckled lightly, as if he had started to admire her. At this time, Gu Qingpei's figure seemed somewhat lonely. He decided to relax at a bar, hoping to meet someone pleasing to the eye, at least to have a decent night. But what Gu Qingpei didn't expect was that a young admirer discovered his secret. Yuan Yang's appearance also messed up his plans for the night. Yuan Yang, putting in a lot of effort to find fault with Gu Qingpei, wanted to catch something on Gu Qingpei to hold against him, to stop Gu Qingpei from nagging him every day. Do you think Yuan Yang will get his wish? Stay tuned for the Pure Love 88 series showdown. Peng Fong organized a gathering today, inviting Yuan Yang and a few friends to the bar. Guess if Gu and Feng Zhang are also there. At this moment, Yuan Yang's glance swept across the street, suddenly catching a familiar figure entering his field of vision. He turned his head sharply, only to see a person getting out of a Porsche parked opposite. It was Gu Qingpei. Peng Fong gave him a weird look and said, let's go, why just stand around here like you're on the street? Yuan Yang didn't bother to listen to them, his eyes fixed on Gu Qingpei. Indeed, Gu Qingpei was alone. After getting off the car, he walked a bit and entered a bar. Peng Fong elbowed him, bro, who's that beauty you're looking at? Let me have a look too. Get lost, don't block my view, Yuan Yang responded. Peng Fong put his arm around Yuan Yang's shoulders. Hey, you're standing behind me and you say I'm blocking you? That's unreasonable. But what exactly are you looking at? Yuan Yang pointed diagonally across. I saw an acquaintance enter that bar. One of their friends glanced over and smiled warmly. Isn't that the bar? Mr. Yuan, is your friend gay? Yuan Yang was startled. What did you say? That is the bar, another friend joked. I heard that the consumption inside is all high class. Yuan Yang slowly revealed a smile. Gu Qingpei, I finally know how to deal with you now. Unaware of the situation, Gu Qingpei, in high spirits, was coming out of the bar with a handsome young man he had just met, Xiao Yang. They were chatting enthusiastically. Xiao Yang, with his delicate face, looked up at Gu Qingpei and stirred something in him. He was exactly Gu Qingpei's type and looked very appealing. Gu Qingpei's car was parked by the road. He said to Xiao Yang, it's cold outside, come in. Just as Xiao Yang was about to get in the car, something flashed in the corner of their eyes. Suddenly, Xiao Yang was grabbed by his collar and pulled aside, which made him yelp in fright. Gu Qingpei turned around sharply, shocked to see Yuan Yang's face, full of mischief. The released Xiao Yang looked at Yuan Yang, visibly panicked. Yuan Yang smirked, Mr. Gu, quite bold, aren't we? Coming out to hunt before midnight? Gu Qingpei quickly regained his composure. Yuan Yang, you really lack manners. Gu Qingpei walked over to Xiao Yang and asked, did you fall? Xiao Yang shook his head with a wronged expression, unable to voice his anger. Gu Qingpei took Xiao Yang's hand, comforting him, it's okay, let's go. However, Yuan Yang blocked their way, resting a hand on the car door, squinting at them. Gu Qingpei frowned and glanced at Yuan Yang, shouting, step aside. Yuan Yang, this little wolf dog, is up to no good. The real show has just begun. After encountering Gu Qingpei's preference, the little wolf dog performed a resentful drama online. At this moment, Gu Qingpei was really a bit emotional. Finally, a suitable appointment was made, but it was ruined by Yuan Yang. Yuan Yang stopped beside Gu Qingpei's car and said with a pitiful face, "Mr. Gu, how can you leave just like that? Shouldn't I take you home?" Gu Qingpei, somewhat annoyed and already off work, replied, "No need." Yuan Yang then said, "You've been drinking, right?" Gu Qingpei sarcastically responded, "Compared to you, my drink is just plain water."
I'm drinking plain water. Even from far away, Gu Qingpei could smell the alcohol on Yuan Yang. Yuan Yang clearly had no intention of letting Gu Qingpei go. "By the way, last time you said you'd drink with me, how about today?" Gu Qingpei frowned. "I don't have time. Will you move or not?" Yuan Yang replied, "If I don't, what are you going to do?" Yuan Yang was clearly picking a fight. Gu Qingpei felt a surge of anger, wanting to slap him twice. This little brat was so damn annoying. Luckily, he wasn't his son. Xiao Yang quietly said, "I'm heading back." Gu Qingpei supported him. "No, I'll take you. Let's grab a taxi." With that, he grabbed Xiao Yang and headed to get a cab. Yuan Yang took a step forward and grabbed Gu Qingpei's arm, laughing ambiguously. "President Gu, with our relationship, do you think it's appropriate to be with someone else right in front of me?" Gu Qingpei's body stiffened. Though he hoped Yuan Yang wasn't misunderstanding, given the situation and the person involved, only an idiot wouldn't see what was going on between him and Xiao Yang. Even though it was quite troublesome for Yuan Yang to know about his preferences, there was no use worrying since it was already out. Gu Qingpei quickly adjusted his mindset. He didn't think he couldn't handle Yuan Yang. Turning around, he smiled. "Xiao Yuan, what kind of relationship did you say we had?" Yuan Yang replied, "President Gu, don't burn bridges after crossing them. Besides, I still have questions for you. What is your relationship with him?" Gu Qingpei was so angry his voice trembled. "We're classmates." "Oh, so you walk arm in arm with all your classmates?" Recalling the earlier scene, Yuan Yang couldn't help but laugh. Not only was Gu Qingpei gay, but he also had such poor taste, favoring these cutesy little boys. This was his type? Gu Qingpei was thoroughly enraged. "Yes, I like walking arm in arm with my classmates. The road's wide enough, isn't it?" Yuan Yang flashed a predatory smile. "If I say it's not, then it's not." He reached out and pushed Xiao Yang, putting on a fierce expression and shouting, "Don't you dare touch my people. Get lost." Xiao Yang was so frightened he turned and ran off. Gu Qingpei's face turned green. The innocent young man was scared off by the young master. Gu Qingpei was furious, especially since Xiao Yang didn't even leave his phone number. He was completely scared away by Yuan Yang, the big brute. At this moment, Gu Qingpei looked at Yuan Chong and asked, "What do you mean by that, young Master Yuan? As far as I remember, we aren't that close yet, right?" Yuan Yang gave a wicked smile. "President Gu, you're quite a disappointment. I thought you'd maintain your elite image for a while longer. I didn't expect that after knowing you for only 4 days, I'd catch you in such an amusing situation." Gu Qingpei smiled calmly. "So what? This is my personal life. What does it have to do with my image?" Yuan Yang leaned closer to Gu Qingpei and whispered, "President Gu's personal life is really exciting. How about I help you spread the word?" Gu Qingpei chuckled. "You think you can blackmail me with that? You underestimate me. Go ahead, spread it. It doesn't matter. I haven't stolen or robbed anyone, and I'm not bothering anyone. There's nothing to hide. But you, Yuan Yang, if you really do that, it would be rather dishonorable." Yuan Yang sneered, "Since when have I been honorable? Let me tell you, my only principle is whether it makes me happy or not. I'm curious to see if you really don't care as much as you say." Gu Qingpei raised an eyebrow provocatively. "Go ahead, give it a try." Yuan Yang gave him a warning glance and turned to walk across the street. After Yuan Yang left, Gu Qingpei let out a long breath. After getting into the car, he leaned back against the seat like a deflated balloon, silently staring at the dashboard. The situation came too suddenly, and he did feel a bit anxious. He had to prepare in advance to deal with any potential crisis. From now on, he wasn't as carefree as he claimed to be. However, his concern wasn't strong enough to let Yuan Yang have leverage over him. After Yuan Yang returned to the bar, Peng Fang was sitting at the bar waiting for him. Seeing him return, Peng Fang immediately asked, "Where did you go? Why did it take you so long?" As Peng Fang approached, he asked, "Who exactly did you see? Why do you look so upset?" Yuan Yang exhaled deeply. "That guy with the surname Gu I told you about before." Peng Fang suddenly nudged Yuan Yang with his hand. "So your boss Gu is just a cover, huh? This is good, now you have leverage. He won't dare trouble you again, will he?" Yuan Yang took a frustrated drag of his cigarette. "Nonsense, without evidence, he can easily deny it. This isn't strong enough to deal with him, but it's a decent entry point. What do you plan to do?" Peng Fang asked casually. Yuan Yang's smile was a bit sinister. There are many ways, but I need to consider if my old man will be so mad at me that he'll pass out if I'm exposed. Preview of the next episode, Yuan Yang is plotting to tease Ji Qingpei. Can he win? In the last episode, after discovering Ji Qingpei's secret, Mr. Yuan is preparing a big plan. When Peng Fang asked him, "What exactly are you planning to do?" Yuan Yang, a bit irritated, replied, "Aren't I thinking it over?" Suddenly, Yuan Yang thought of something, let out a wicked chuckle. "I'll play a game of counting ducks with him and make a little film for fun." Peng Fang laughed loudly. "You're really something, aren't you?" Then he slapped Yuan Yang on the back. "Why don't you just sacrifice yourself?" Yuan Yang was so startled he coughed. "Get lost." He shook off Peng Fang and suggested he go sleep with some similar creature. He'd rather return to the army and become a monk. Peng Fang blinked innocently. "You can't blame me for thinking this. Think about it, he's into guys who look good, and you're always around. I refuse to believe he doesn't have any thoughts about you." Yuan Yang was stunned. He never considered it from this perspective. He couldn't help but remember that day he was sleeping in Ji Qingpei's bed in his underwear, and Ji Qingpei stared at him as soon as he walked in. Damn it, Yuan Yang couldn't help but curse. Recalling that scene now gave him goosebumps. Peng Fang, still fanning the flames, asked, "So, did something come to mind?" Yuan Yang glared at him, his face ashen. "Your mouth is really annoying. How am I talking nonsense? You tell me if my analysis is correct." The more Yuan Yang thought about it, the more uncomfortable he felt. The thought that he might be an object of a gay man's fantasies deepened his disgust for Ji Qingpei. His disgust for Ji Qingpei deepened. On Monday morning, as expected, Ji Qingpei came downstairs on time, and Yuan Yang was waiting for him. However, his face was gloomy, and his eyes were as sharp as a hawk's. When those eyes stared fiercely at someone, it sent chills down people's spines. Ji Qingpei instinctively used his laptop bag to shield himself. Yuan Yang asked coldly, "What's wrong with you? Didn't sleep well?" Yuan Yang's voice was filled with hostility. "Don't play dumb. You're the one who urged my dad to ask me for money, aren't you?" Ji Qingpei put on an innocent face. "How the hell am I not independent? Stop pretending." Yuan Yang roared angrily. "I gave all my money to my dad. Happy now?" Ji Qingpei blinked and replied, "Yuan Yang, I really have no idea what you're talking about." Ji Qingpei thought to himself, this naive kid can't take any pressure. As soon as Yuan Lijiang asked him for money, his pride was hurt, and he immediately handed it over. Judging from Yuan Yang's furious expression, Ji Qingpei realized he might be in danger. Could Yuan Yang really be thinking about hitting me? Yuan Yang sneered, "You dare to do things behind my back but play innocent on the surface. Ji Qingpei, I really want to burn you to a crisp." Ji Qingpei showed a calming smile. "Yuan Yang, relax. If you manage to become truly independent, he definitely won't be able to control you anymore." Yuan Yang squinted his eyes and glared viciously at Ji Qingpei. "Ji, today I'll teach you a little lesson. Don't think that just because I've been tolerating you, you can walk all over me." Ji Qingpei took a step back, unsure of what Yuan Yang was planning. Next episode preview, Yuan Yang takes a hammer out of the car. What is Yuan Yang planning to do? The little wolf dog is angry at Ji Qingpei today. Yuan Yang's financial independence was taken away by Yuan Lijiang, and he knows it was Ji Qingpei's doing. He's got a hammer. Is he planning to perform a lion dance with Ji Qingpei? This morning, Yuan Yang came to wait for Ji Qingpei downstairs. After breaking up with Ji Qingpei and having his finances confiscated by his father, Yuan Yang returned to his Hummer and took out a huge hammer from the backseat. Ji Qingpei resisted the urge to run away, although he really wanted to. Despite being a regular at the gym, even Schwarzenegger wouldn't be able to handle this big guy. Yuan Yang weighed the hammer in his hand and quickly found it quite handy. He walked towards Ji Qingpei with the hammer, eyes fixed on him, not believing that Yuan Yang would dare to hit him with it. Seeing Ji Qingpei looking a bit cowardly, Yuan Yang showed a cunning smile, then suddenly grabbed the hammer and smashed it down hard on his car. With a loud bang, the hood of Ji Qingpei's newly replaced Cayenne caved in, leaving a huge dent. The car alarm went off frantically, and nearby cars also started honking because of the noise. Ji Qingpei's expression darkened as he coldly watched Yuan Yang. Yuan Yang, with a smirk, taunted, "Don't worry, I'll pay for it, while I still can afford it." After saying that, he swung the hammer again, hitting the side door, completely deforming the beautiful car body. "But I'll only pay the depreciated cost. If you're not satisfied, ask my dad for it. After all, he has all my money now." After that, he struck again and again, each hit seemingly landing on Ji Qingpei's face. Clenching his fists tightly, filled with anger, the security guard from the community ran over shouting, "Hey, what are you doing? Yuan Yang turned around, holding the hammer. With a glare, several security guards didn't dare approach but still tried to hold Yuan Yang back, preventing him from continuing his rampage. Yang Sheng threatened to call the police. At this moment, Ji Qingpei remained exceptionally calm. He simply nodded to indicate to the security guards that it was okay and they didn't need to intervene. Ji Qingpei coldly looked at Yuan Yang. Go ahead and smash it. I'll send the bill to Chairman Yuan. Don't try to scare me with my dad. If I indulge you today, tomorrow you'll be even more arrogant, maybe even riding over my head. Yuan Yang seemed to be caught up in the destruction, venting all his resentment towards Ji Qingpei onto that innocent car. A perfectly good car was wrecked. Ji Qingpei stood by with a grim expression, slowly adjusting his emotions. Yuan Yang, covered in sweat, finally tossed the hammer aside with satisfaction. He took off his suit jacket, revealing a shirt with a slightly damp front. He patted the dust off his hands and looked down at Ji Qingpei as if nothing had happened. President Ji, going to work? In the next episode preview, it seems the feud between Yuan Yang and Ji Qingpei has officially begun. Yuan Yang, upon seeing Ji Qingpei changing clothes, unexpectedly showed an expression of admiration, suddenly recalling Peng Fang's words which startled himself. In the previous episode, it was mentioned that Yuan Yang directed his actions against Ji Qingpei, and the two then engaged in another round of debate. Although Ji Qingpei was startled by Yuan Yang's behavior, he didn't hold back his sharp tongue. He advised Yuan Yang to take it easy and honestly stick to his job to support himself. Yuan Yang, provoked by his words, was getting angry. There's no grievance Yuan Yang cannot swallow. Ji Qingpei finally released Yuan Yang with resignation, saying, don't go borrowing things all over the place if you dare. The two stared at each other for 49 seconds. Yuan Yang grabbed Ji Qingpei's chin, leaned in, and said through gritted teeth, I, Yuan Yang, have never borrowed money from anyone. But you, Ji, we have a score to settle. The two faced off, neither backing down, clashing with no clear winner, just testing each other's mettle. Ji Qingpei pretended to be relaxed and smiled slightly, saying, we'll see. After returning to the company, even though Ji Qingpei hinted about this to Yuan Lijiang, he still felt uneasy. Ji Qingpei had a habit of napping, but the situation with Yuan Yang was troubling him. Yuan Yang's morning absence gave him a reason to dock his pay. He wanted to see how Yuan Yang would survive on 3,000 a month. Ji, you're ruthless, Yuan Yang's voice cursed from the doorway. Ji Qingpei was about to change into his pajamas when the door suddenly opened. He was wearing a pair of black briefs, his long legs and slim waist fully exposed. Ji Qingpei turned around in surprise, and there was Yuan Yang frowning at the door. Ji Qingpei was slightly nearsighted, not very strong, but although he could tell it was Yuan Yang, he still squinted unconsciously, his gaze appearing a bit unfocused due to mild astigmatism. Yuan Yang thought to himself, wow, is dealing with this man as simple as stripping him? What am I even thinking? It's all Peng Fang's fault with his misleading talk. Ji Qingpei couldn't see Yuan Yang's expression clearly and simply asked him calmly what he needed. Yuan Yang, however, closed the door behind him and said, do you have something to say to me? Let's talk in the afternoon. I need to rest, Ji Qingpei replied while putting on his pajamas. This movement elongated his back and leg lines. Yuan Yang's gaze faltered as he looked at Ji Qingpei's waist, without a trace of extra flesh, as if he could hold him with one arm. Yuan Yang felt a bit unsettled. Once he realized the person in front of him was interested in men, he couldn't help but think differently. Besides, he didn't know if someone like Ji Qingpei was the one on top or bottom, like a rival he could still contend with, but being defeated by a street thug felt humiliating to him. Yuan Yang simply couldn't imagine such a scene and couldn't accept it. In the next episode preview, Yuan Yang continues on his path of bending without realizing it. Speaking of which, although Yuan Yang challenged Ji Qingpei, he was somewhat bewildered by Ji Qingpei's actions. The little wolf dog proceeds on his self-bending path, gradually realizing it. In the continuation, when Yuan Yang barged into Ji Qingpei's resting room, Ji Qingpei was also startled. At this moment, Yuan Yang's tone was both urgent and rude. After tattling to my dad, do you still want to nap? Ji Qingpei shrugged, putting on his pajama top. There's no logic between these things. If you want to discuss this, go out first. I'll call you when I wake up. I want to sleep too. From now on, I'll nap here at noon. Sleep wherever you want. Yuan Yang pushed Ji Qingpei aside. Ji Qingpei was momentarily stunned. This is the CEO's office. Technically, I didn't allow you to come in. What can you do? Dock my pay? Keep docking it. Yuan Yang stood up, removed his shoes, and then took off his jacket. Just as he habitually started to unbutton, he realized something and glanced at Ji Qingpei. Yuan Yang glared at him. I'm afraid you'll fart. Thinking you'd get a free show? You're about to lie down with your clothes on. Ji Yu Qingpei chuckled. I think I forgot to tell you, I'm not interested in your type. Yuan Yang sneered. You like the ones like that day? Was it you snapping him, or him snapping you? Ji Yu Qingpei laughed. Personal privacy, can't disclose. Yuan Yang felt a sudden anger. Someone like you who only pays for company of young ones. You must be cheap. Ji Yu Qingpei didn't understand Yuan Yang's sudden anger but calmly replied. Well, I'm not spending your money. No need to report details to you, right? Yuan Yang just turned over on the bed, expressed disdain, and said, disgusting. Ji Yu Qingpei's eyes flashed coldly, smiling insincerely, sorry, but I must self-disgust. Before Yuan Yang could react, Ji Yu Qingpei got on the bed. Yuan Yang jumped up, pushed aside, and shouted, what are you doing? Who told you to get up? Ji Yu Qingpei pointed to the bed, it's mine. I'm taking a nap. Feel free to sleep here with another TXL. With that, he lifted the blanket and slipped under it, closing his eyes. Yuan Yang was a bit stunned, watching Ji Yu Qingpei's closed eyes, his long eyelashes slightly fluttering, nostrils gently moving with his breath. Yuan Yang, being someone who never admits defeat, couldn't leave now or he'd lose. He gritted his teeth and got under the blanket too. Next episode preview, Yuan Yang looked at Ji Yu Qingpei in front of him, feeling like 1,000 wild sheep were running and frolicking in his heart. Yuan Yang is using imaginary scenarios to bend himself. He feels both annoyed and filled with various mysterious fantasies about the Ji Yu Qingpei in front of him. Now, squeezing onto the narrow bed with Ji Yu Qingpei, Yuan Yang only needs to move slightly to touch Ji Yu Qingpei's arm. He lies flat like a mummy. Yuan Yang glances at Ji Yu Qingpei, wondering if Ji Yu Qingpei is the brother from the lower bunk. Although he didn't admit it earlier, he didn't deny it either. Yuan Yang can't control himself from imagining Ji Yu Qingpei in an explicit situation, unable to stop himself no matter what. His thoughts are like a runaway horse, uncontrollable. Sleeping next to him, Ji Yu Qingpei is like a ticking time bomb, making Yuan Yang uncomfortable all over. He suddenly has a frightening thought, maybe a fight could solve their disputes. Yuan Yang suddenly sits up, looking at Ji Yu Qingpei's peaceful sleeping face, feeling a surge of irritation. Isn't this guy supposed to be rainbow, gay? How can he sleep in the same bed with no reaction at all? Yuan Yang thinks he can't sleep because of the light, so he decides to turn off the lamp. Yuan Yang stretches his arm, reaching over Ji Yu Qingpei's body to turn off the lamp. Unexpectedly, as he moves, Ji Yu Qingpei suddenly opens his eyes, looking at him in surprise. Yuan Yang is startled, trying to retreat while reaching out, but loses his balance and falls onto Ji Yu Qingpei's body. Ji Yu Qingpei lets out a muffled groan. Ji Yu Qingpei swiftly pushes him, hitting Yuan Yang's stomach, causing his stomach to churn. Unexpectedly, Ji Yu Qingpei is really strong, and it feels like getting punched in the stomach without any defense. Yuan Yang suddenly got angry, grabbed Ji Yu Qingpei's neck and gritted his teeth. I am, aren't I? Ji Yu Qingpei's eyes regained a bit of clarity, frowned, and said, what are you doing? His breathing was somewhat hurried. Yuan Yang said aggressively, I'm going to turn off the light. How dare you hit me? Ji Yu Qingpei took another breath. Yuan Yang was almost on top of him, and the weight was really heavy. Through 2 layers of clothing, he could clearly feel Yuan Yang's bulging chest muscles, rising and falling with his breathing, pressing against his chest. This was quite a stimulus for Ji Yu Qingpei. At this moment, Ji Yu Qingpei's face turned cold, and he said to Yuan Yang, word by word, get off me. Yuan Yang looked down and realized his upper body was almost pressing down on Ji Yu Qingpei. This position was really inappropriate. He quickly pushed himself up, a trace of embarrassment flashing across his face. Next episode preview, Ji Yu Qingpei angrily tells Yuan Yang, what's growing on my body doesn't hinder your walking. Yuan Yang shamelessly climbed onto Ji Yu Qingpei's bed in the break room and imagined a battle. Now see how turning off the light can be so thrilling. Yuan Yang said aggressively, I'll turn off the light. How dare you hit me? But soon, Yuan Yang realized he was sitting on Ji Yu Qingpei. He quickly propped himself up, a trace of embarrassment flashing across his face. Ji Yu Qingpei exhaled, instinctively curled up his body, and reached to turn off the light. Yuan Yang returned to his spot, still angry from being hit earlier. Earlier, I was really angry after being hit. Now that I've calmed down a bit, I can't help but recall some strange feelings when we came into contact. Suddenly, he felt the veins on his forehead throbbing. When he was pressing down on Ji Yu Qingpei, that strange feeling was something no man would be unfamiliar with. Yuan Yang asked coldly, were you hard just now? Ji Yu Qingpei was discovered by Yuan Yang, and even a seasoned person like him was blushing. But Ji Yu Qingpei still sneered, pretending to be calm. It's on my own body, it didn't block your way, did it? Yuan Yang suddenly threw off the blanket and sat up. Damn, that's really shameless, he said, then put on his shoes, slammed the door, and left. Ji Qingpei stretched his body, adjusted to a comfortable position, and muttered, stupid mule. After lying down for a while, Ji Qingpei couldn't fall asleep. His body was hot, his mind filled with sensual fantasies. Maybe because he hadn't been intimate for a couple of months, he was too sensitive, and a little stimulation made him hard, embarrassing himself in front of Yuan Yang. The thought made him frustrated. He unconsciously rubbed against the sheet, but he didn't want to use his hand because getting hard from contact with Yuan Yang was embarrassing enough. Doing anything now seemed like it was for Yuan Yang, and he didn't want someone as unlikable as that. The sorrow of a single man, Ji Qingpei thought self-mockingly. When Ji Qingpei returned to the office, he found that Yuan Yang, who had disappeared, was already sitting on the sofa in his office, leaning against the soft cushion, fiddling with his phone. Hearing the door open and close, Yuan Yang glanced at him with a look of disdain. Ji Qingpei felt a surge of anger, glanced at him indifferently, and simply pretended not to see him. He sat back in his seat and began reviewing the stack of files on his desk. He found that Yuan Yang didn't like staying in the secretary's office, probably because it was too narrow, dark, and stuffy. He usually stayed on the sofa in his office until he finally couldn't stand it anymore and said to Yuan Yang, "Don't stay in my office all day, go out." Next episode preview. Yuan Yang mocks Ji Qingpei, asking if he had a big conflict with someone in the room and warns him not to harbor any thoughts about himself. Ji Qingpei, even if you don't like Yuan Yang's carefree personality, you have to bear with it. After all, you're going to be his wife in the future. Ji Qingpei really can't stand Yuan Yang. He closes the folder and delegates some tasks. Distribute these documents according to the department indicated on the cover. Yuan Yang finally looked up at him, suddenly squinting and smiling as if feeling guilty. Ji Qingpei remains expressionless. What do you mean? Yuan Yang, barely holding back a mischievous smile, said to Ji Qingpei, were you battling it out in the break room? Ji Qingpei frowned, unable to resist mocking Yuan Yang for being too nosy. Yuan Yang stood up, walked over to his desk, leaned on it with both hands, and his tone was full of warning. Mr. Ji, I don't care what you're thinking, but if I find out you dare fantasize about me, I'll make sure you get a lesson. Ji Qingpei scoffed and said indignantly, have some shame, will you? Even if you're straight, it doesn't mean you can fight with just anyone. What happened at noon was just a natural reaction. I have no interest in you at all, don't flatter yourself. Yuan Yang scoffed, better be that way, otherwise I can't spare you. He glared with fierce eyes, made a throat-slitting gesture, then finally picked up the thick folder on the desk and left. Ji Qingpei sighed. It was becoming unbearable. He really couldn't stand Yuan Yang hovering around him anymore. Now, even if it meant getting a beating, he just wanted Yuan Yang to get lost. As he was thinking of a plan, the phone on the desk suddenly rang. Ji Qingpei answered the call. It was the culprit, Yuan Lijiang, calling. Although Ji Qingpei harbored deep resentment, he warmly greeted, hello, Director Yuan. The two chatted for a bit before Yuan Lijiang got straight to the point. Manager Ji, you'll need to go on a business trip this week. Ji Qingpei asked, is it about the acquisition of Baiyuan Chemical? Yuan Lijiang directly confirmed, yes, and take Yuan Yang with you. After hanging up the phone, Ji Qingpei felt even worse. A while later, Yuan Yang came in. Ji Qingpei said, this Thursday, you're coming with me on a business trip to Hangzhou. Write down what I say. Book a flight for Thursday morning. Bring Sister Zhao from finance, Xiaoling from legal, and Manager Wang from the investment department. Book a hotel that's at least 4 stars, and no more than 10 minutes by car from Baiyuan Chemical's office. Book 3 rooms. I'll take one, the 2 women share another, and you share a room with Manager Wang. Ji Qingpei was unhappy that Yuan Lijiang insisted on Yuan Yang being his driver. Now he even had to take him along on a business trip. It seemed like this father and son were competing to make his life difficult. At that moment, Yuan Yang rolled his eyes, crossed his legs on the couch, and frowned. I'm not sharing a room with him. In the next episode preview, Yuan Yang and Ji Qingpei go on a business trip, and Yuan Yang plans to have Peng Fang cause some trouble for him. Yuan Yang and Peng Fang are scheming during the trip to give Ji Qingpei some hard time. It seems Yuan Yang is in quite a good mood this time. Will Yuan Yang succeed? Ji Qingpei adjusted his glasses and reminded him, don't forget, you've already turned in all your assets. If you can still afford a hotel that costs 700 or 800 a night, then that means you lied. Yuan Yang stood up in a fury, his face darkened. He had completely forgotten that he no longer had any money. Ji Qingpei observed his expression and couldn't help but feel a bit schadenfreude. Xiao Yuan, people need to follow the rules, he said. Go ahead and give the notice. Yuan Yang gritted his teeth, wishing he could chew Ji Qingpei between them. Yuan Yang was fuming with anger. He called Peng Fang. Yuan Yang said slyly, "Hey, I'm going on a business trip to Hangzhou with Ji Qingpei. This is the perfect opportunity. Do you know anyone reliable on your end? See if you can get me a trustworthy MB. I can't stand him for one more day." Peng Fang, hearing that Yuan Yang wanted to play dirty, immediately perked up. "No problem, leave it to me." After hanging up, Yuan Yang flashed a sinister smile. Ji Qingpei. Yuan Yang revealed a cold smile. Ji Qingpei, it's time for us to settle our score. The next morning, 2 company drivers picked up 5 people and drove them to the airport. Yuan Yang was assigned to the economy class, and sitting next to him was Manager Wang from the investment department. Manager Wang is an easygoing guy, loves to chat, but Yuan Yang wasn't in the mood. His mind was all about dealing with Ji Qingpei in Hangzhou. Just then, a flight attendant approached and bent down to ask, "Are you Mr. Yuan?" Yuan Yang nodded. "Yes, what's up?" The flight attendant, with a professional smile, said, "Mr. Ji asked you to bring his luggage over. He wants to change his clothes." "What?" Yuan Yang's eyes widened. The pretty flight attendant was startled by his intimidating expression. She hesitated and said, "I'm just passing on Mr. Gu's message. He said you're his assistant." Yuan Yang snorted heavily. "Got it." He stood up to get Ji Qingpei's suitcase. He carried the luggage to first class, where he saw Ji Qingpei leisurely sipping coffee. Yuan Yang, clearly annoyed, tossed the suitcase at his feet. If Ji Qingpei hadn't dodged in time, it would have hit his foot. Ji Qingpei frowned at him. "Why are you always so reckless?" Yuan Yang was furious and wanted to slap him. "What the hell do you want?" Ji Qingpei ignored his anger and calmly said, "It's warmer in Hangzhou than in Beijing." After saying that, he handed a sweater to Yuan Yang. "Wear this coat when we land, it's thick enough. Otherwise, you'll get too hot. Fold it neatly and put it in the suitcase. There's a dust bag inside." Yuan Yang snatched the sweater. He truly wanted to throw it right onto Ji Qingpei's smug face. Next episode preview, Ji Qingpei, the real show is just beginning. I'll see how long you can stay cocky. To ensure a smooth repair process for Ji Qingpei, Yuan Yang was unusually obedient before his business trip. Ji Qingpei was secretly thrilled, wishing he could always be this obedient. Quiet for only 3 seconds, Ji Qingpei on the plane was shocked by Yuan Yang's act of putting away clothes. Ji Qingpei frowned at his actions and exclaimed, "Even simple assistant tasks you can't do well, when will your father ever trust you?" Yuan Yang coldly replied, "If the job is just to serve you, then I'll never do it well." "Mr. Ji, your days of arrogance are numbered." Ji Qingpei shrugged, "You're too naive. I'm training you. You always think I'm targeting you." Although he indeed wanted to teach Yuan Yang a lesson, he would never admit it. "Who cares about your training?" Yuan Yang glared at him, turned his face away, and Ji Qingpei waved his hand. "Take the suitcase back, don't leave it here." Yuan Yang lazily said, "I can't be bothered to go back." Ji Qingpei was embarrassed by Yuan Yang's rogue behavior and told him, "You didn't buy a ticket, don't just hang around here, it looks bad." Yuan Yang crossed his legs, disdainfully saying, "You talk too much. Just go back." Ji Qingpei shook his head, "Hurry back." Yuan Yang leaned back in his chair, apparently planning to rest for a while. Upon arriving in Hangzhou, they worked diligently. The direct investigative work was nearly complete, and Ji Qingpei planned to relax and go to a bar. He preferred creating stories in unfamiliar places where he seldom met acquaintances. Ji Qingpei changed into casual clothes and went out. Just then, a voice rang in Ji Qingpei's ear, "Is this President Ji?" Ji Qingpei turned around and saw Yuan Yang with a young man, who extended his hand saying, "Hello, President Ji." Ji Qingpei smiled and replied, "Hello, hello." Yuan Yang raised an eyebrow. "Where are you off to?" Ji Qingpei nonchalantly said, "Just going out for a stroll." Yuan Yang wanted to say something more, but Peng Fang gave him a look and said to Ji Qingpei, "It's great." Ji Qingpei glanced at the two of them and exchanged a few polite words with Peng Fang. Although Ji Qingpei found their behavior strange, he didn't want Yuan Yang to bother him, so he left quickly. After Ji Qingpei left, Peng Fang proudly said, "I told you, when men go on business trips, how many don't go out to have fun? You were worried there'd be no chance, and here it is." Yuan Yang rolled his eyes at him. "Shut up. Follow him quickly and see where he's going. Have you contacted that MB yet?" Ji Qingpei's charm is undeniable. He hadn't been at the bar long before he took an MB back to the hotel. In the preview of the next episode, Ji Qingpei falls into Yuan Yang's trap, but Yuan Yang finds himself a little restless. Ji Qingpei hadn't been at the bar long before he took a handsome young guy back to the hotel. Ji Qingpei could tell the other was an MB, but he couldn't resist someone who could please him. After the two returned to the hotel, the MB leaned in to kiss Ji Qingpei, who slightly pulled back. Smiling, he pinched the MB's cheek. Don't rush. How long have you been in this line of work? Not long, the MB admitted honestly, as Ji Qingpei expected. Everyone in this line says, not long, but nobody knows how long it really is. Ji Qingpei saw through it but said nothing. He smiled and told the MB, I'm going to take a shower. Feel free to do whatever. The MB shyly replied, okay. After Ji Qingpei entered the bathroom, the sound of running water started. The MB quickly took out his phone and dialed. Hello, are you here? I'm in room 1215. Where are you? He quietly ran to the room Yuan Yang and Peng Fang had opened on the 12th floor. The boy was a bit nervous. Big brother, you called me out last minute to set up a camera. Where should I put it? Peng Fang replied, what are you afraid of? If something happens, we'll handle it. Just put it anywhere, cover it with something, keep it hidden. The MB was frightened and said, this will get noticed. Peng Fang told the MB that they wouldn't notice. The driver next to him was fiddling with the pinhole camera in his hand. He irritably scolded Peng Fang, how do you find people like this? Such a coward, how can you be so timid? Serve him well, and then he won't notice the camera. The MB looked at them with difficulty, wanting to say something. Peng Fang also angrily said, stop talking nonsense. Do you still want to make money? With no choice, the MB turned and left. Yuan Yang frowned and suddenly asked Peng Fang, I ask you, does this kid have a problem? Peng Fang was taken aback by his question, and Yuan Yang continued to ask, is this guy the brother from the upper bunk? Brother Peng Fang in the lower bunk spread his hands, how would I know all this? Peng Fang was also anxious, let's not worry about it too much, okay? After all, isn't everyone just bare-bottomed playing with mud? At this moment, Yuan Yang took out a cigarette from his pocket. Why does it feel like any simpleton could conquer Ji Qingpei? Yet only he is constantly thwarted by Ji Qingpei. Yuan Yang felt something was wrong, as he should be the one to conquer his rival. Being repeatedly humiliated and snubbed felt as though he was being slapped in the face. It was really damn frustrating. Yuan Yang took a deep puff of his cigarette, feeling increasingly agitated and restless. Next episode preview, Peng Fang spikes Ji Qingpei's drink with MB. Eventually, Yuan Yang couldn't hold back and burst into Ji Qingpei's room. Guys, can you summarize 2022 in 4 words? I'll start with sitting on pins and needles, just like Yuan Yang now. Although it was he who asked Peng Fang to deal with Ji Qingpei, he felt very agitated, always sensing something was wrong. Meanwhile, just after taking a bath, Ji Qingpei saw MB wiping a cup. Ji Qingpei, smiling, ruffled MB's head and said, the J has arrived. While you're awake, go take a bath, MB. MB obediently nodded. After MB finished his bath and was more or less awake, Ji Qingpei personally poured 2 glasses. The 2 wine glasses clinked gently, the dark red liquid swirling in the glass. Ji Qingpei downed his drink in one go, while MB appeared slightly nervous. He was afraid Ji Qingpei would discover what was going on. He didn't realize what MB was doing and moved closer to the young MB, ready to start a fight, but unexpectedly, MB stopped him. Ji Qingpei suspiciously asked. MB quickly stood up, I forgot something, I need to call home. Ji Qingpei chuckled, it's not that urgent, go ahead. Shortly after MB left, Ji Qingpei felt strange, his skin slowly turning red. Ji Qingpei sensed something was wrong. His heart raced as his body heated up. A surge of emotion seemed ready to burst through the sky. Ji Qingpei gasped for air, his body weak and his eyes showing a hint of disorientation. He recalled the moment MB looked back while calling, realizing MB had spiked his drink. Dizzy, he collapsed onto the bed, unsure of MB's intentions. Was it for money? But the overwhelming weakness left him voiceless. He clenched his teeth and asked MB, who had re-entered, if he spiked his drink. The young MB trembled, I'm sorry, it was me. Ji Qingpei growled, do I look like someone to mess with? Why spike the drink? If you wanted money, why didn't you just leave? Are you out of your mind? The young MB turned pale, grabbed his clothes, and ran. Ji Qingpei was stunned, MB just left him there. Furious, Ji Qingpei gasped heavily, his body burning. From the moment he drank until now, only 5 minutes had passed, yet the reaction was so intense. Ji Qingpei feared the additive might harm him. In the next episode preview, Yuan Yang ignores Peng Fang's advice and insists on finding Ji Qingpei, witnessing a shocking scene. Is deep-seated homophobia true? Liking someone isn't about gender, is it just because you like that person? Yuan Yang seemed homophobic initially, but his fantasies were only in his mind. Yet, he had to admit his faithfulness. Today, after being drugged by MB in his drink, Ji Qingpei was stood up. He felt weak and uncomfortably writhed on the bed, rubbing his body against the sheets non-stop, but such contact couldn't alleviate his current embarrassment. Meanwhile, in another room, Peng Fang just received a call from MB. Yuan Yang couldn't sit still anymore. He stood up intending to find Ji Qingpei. Peng Fang stopped him. Are you crazy? What are you going to do? Maybe they are passionately involved right now. Yuan Yang cursed. Are you out of your mind? Instead of handling the important matters, you've given him a night of pleasure. Yuan Yang shook off Peng Fang's hand and said angrily, get out of the way. I'm going to tie him up now, do whatever shooting you want. Peng Fang, disheartened, said, I tried to be nice, and this is how you repay me. Fine, I'm done with you. Yuan Yang, furious and frantic, stormed out. He couldn't stand it if such a pathetic weakling could compete with Ji Qingpei. Yuan Yang was intolerant of being disgraced by Ji Qingpei. Using the door card that little MB sneakily brought out, he swiped open the door. The scene before him made Yuan Yang's face turn furiously red and his heart race. He saw a slender figure writhing and twisting on the bed. The robe on the body was mostly open, revealing long legs continuously folding and stretching, showcasing well-toned muscles. At this moment, Ji Qingpei's body was flushed, his moist hair sticking to his masculine, attractive face, his eyes half closed, surrounded by a misty allure. At this point, Ji Qingpei could still recognize who had come in. Trembling, he gripped his bathrobe and glared at Yuan Yang with gritted teeth. It was your setup. When Ji Qingpei told Yuan Yang to get out, Yuan Yang just stood there, staring at Ji Qingpei in front of him, feeling as if his scalp had exploded. Yuan Yang appearing here made Ji Qingpei realize everything. He just didn't expect Yuan Yang to be so despicable. Ji Qingpei tried his best to stand up, knowing he had been tricked. But when he couldn't manage to stand up straight, he collapsed back to the ground. He didn't want to give in but felt powerless. Ji Qingpei held his forehead, which he could hardly support, feeling really awful yet still trying to appear calm in front of this person. At this moment, Ji Qingpei looked up at Yuan Yang. His flushed cheeks and sparkling eyes made him appear exceptionally delicate. Yuan Yang, looking down at the unimposing Ji Qingpei, burst into laughter. With the posture of a victor, Yuan Yang suddenly grasped Ji Qingpei's chin. Next episode preview, Yuan Dog takes a fancy to the fox. Will he dare to make a move? Today's episode is quite thrilling and stirring. With some excitement, Babies, the second season of Yi Zui, has started updating at Mugen Manbo. Those who are following, remember to keep up. In the last episode, Yuan Yang broke into Ji Qingpei's room and witnessed a fascinating scene. Yuan Yang couldn't help but want to show off, arrogantly pinching Ji Qingpei's chin. At this moment, he was showing an inexplicable smile. No one would believe that the usually calm President Ji also has such an unknown side. Ji Qingpei was panting heavily. He really didn't want to appear weak in front of Yuan Yang, but was angered by him. Ji Qingpei threw a punch like a marshmallow at Yuan Yang, but Yuan Yang caught it with a mocking laugh. Ji Qingpei, somewhat unstable, leaned toward Yuan Yang. Yuan Yang grabbed his hand and said with another mocking laugh, "Finally got to see you in this pitiful state." At this point, Ji Qingpei was already weakly collapsing to the ground, and Yuan Yang was startled by how fragile he seemed. Ji Qingpei used his last bit of reason and clarity to warn Yuan Yang, regardless of what he intended, to leave immediately. Yuan Yang ignored Ji Qingpei, grabbing his hand and saying, "Ji Qingpei, look at how pathetic you are now." Ji Qingpei stared intently at Yuan Yang, his vision beginning to blur. He questioned what Yuan Yang really wanted to do. Yuan Yang leaned closer to Ji Qingpei, a bit surprised himself, thinking he just wanted to take a photo and leave, not expecting this situation. At this moment, he saw Ji Qingpei in front of him, his hand unconsciously reaching toward Ji Qingpei. Yuan Yang noticed that Ji Qingpei felt hot, and Ji Qingpei slightly turned his head, not wanting to be humiliated by Yuan Yang. Yuan Yang suddenly realized something. He swallowed nervously, shocked by his own actions. He actually thought of a more direct way to deal with Ji Qingpei than taking photos. If Ji Qingpei is willing to take over, he wouldn't dare to trouble him anymore. Since you can be brothers with others, why can't you be brothers with me? As soon as Yuan Yang thought of this, he lifted Ji Qingpei up and threw him onto the bed, where Ji Qingpei fell heavily. Ji Qingpei was thrown quite forcefully. Frustrated and upset, he asked, "What are you doing?" Yuan Yang ignored him and pressed on aggressively, looking at Ji Qingpei's flushed face. "Mr. Ji, you're very hot." He noticed that Yuan Yang wouldn't let him go. With his last bit of strength, Ji Qingpei spat out, telling Yuan Yang to get lost. If it weren't for his remaining sanity, he might have beaten up the young man. Yet, Yuan Yang began to touch him, asking with an extremely suggestive tone, "Does it feel terrible?" Next episode preview, the fight between the puppy and the fox is quite thrilling. Unfortunately, the fox ends up being completely devoured by the puppy. It seems this time the fox will be completely eaten by the puppy. Due to the suggestive content, we can only broadly understand the grievances of Jiyu Tianxian. Today, the puppy ignores the fox's pleas and forcefully wants to become good brothers with the fox. The fox, being well trained, can still resist for the time being. But because of the added ingredients in the MV, he is unable to fight back. As the fox thinks of escaping, the puppy feels that the fox usually doesn't give him enough respect. Today, he must make the fox suffer a bit. Although the fox seems to threaten the puppy not to go too far by the end, the puppy is already desperate, thinking, "You can be brothers with others, why can't I? Today, I have to eat meat no matter what." The fox, abandoning its usual elegance, cursed the little wolf dog as a fool. Seeing that the prey had been captured, the little wolf dog no longer pretended. "If you want to call me a fool, then so be it. Anyway, I just want to be brothers with you." The little wolf dog and the fox fought fiercely, unaware of how embarrassing the scene was. The little wolf dog finally got his revenge. He said to the fox, "Let's see if you dare to treat me like this again." The fox really didn't want to be brothers with the little wolf dog, but during the fight, the fox said before passing out, "I won't let you off." The fox had never felt so wronged before, always being the one to act like the wolf dog. The battle between the fox and the little wolf dog finally ended. Even though the little fox was in pain, he seemed to be holding onto something warm. Turning his head, he saw a furry head. Jiyu Qingpei appeared in his view with eyes tightly closed and breathing unevenly, looking quite uncomfortable. Yuan Yang felt a chill down his spine and quickly sat up. He remembered what he did last night. He glanced at the balloons scattered around, filled with various fragrances and softness. He actually became brothers with Jiyu Qingpei. Yuan Yang looked at Jiyu Qingpei, blaming the fox's fur for being too smooth, making it irresistible. Suddenly, he was surprised to find Jiyu Qingpei had a fever. He reached out to touch Jiyu Qingpei's skin, which was burning hot. Yuan Yang felt a bit embarrassed. Last night's fight was too intense, and it's no wonder Jiyu Qingpei got sick. He looked at Jiyu Qingpei's dizzy appearance and the striking marks on his body, feeling somewhat shocked. He scratched his head, realizing his excessiveness, and asked the front desk for a new quilt. Then he called Peng Tai to arrange for a doctor to come over. In the next episode preview, Yuan Yang loses himself while taking care of the feverish Jiyu Qingpei, and Tong Fang sees Yuan Yang's efforts in a new light. The little wolf dog never knew how delicious the taste of meat was until this fox made him realize it. Since then, he began to guard the food for the babies. The second season of A Drunken Year is updated in MuGe's side account. Remember to search for MuGe's Walking Society and follow for daily updates. Yuan Yang might not even realize the changes within himself towards Jiyu Qingpei. Anyway, now he treats Jiyu Qingpei as his precious treasure. When the doctor saw the light, scattered marks on Jiyu Qingpei's body, he wanted to lift the quilt to check Jiyu Qingpei's injuries. As soon as Yuan Yang saw the doctor trying to lift the quilt, he rushed up, grabbed the doctor's arm aggressively, and asked fiercely, "What are you doing?" The doctor turned pale from his grip. The doctor, in pain, asked him to let go and hurriedly explained, "How can I treat him if I don't look?" Yuan Yang, squinting and reluctant, had no choice but to say, "Go ahead and look." At this moment, Yuan Yang dragged Peng Fang into the bathroom. "Aren't you and Mr. Jiyu like fire and water? How did you suddenly become close?" Yuan Yang splashed water on his face and replied in a low voice, "I'm not close to him." Peng Fang noticed that Yuan Yang's words were inconsistent and retorted, "Are those balloons on the ground used by ghosts? Mr. Jiyu is really unlucky to run into you." Yuan Yang got annoyed by Peng Fang's words, "I'm not the unlucky one. I'm annoyed to death by him every day." Peng Fang said with a bit of sarcasm, "Well, congratulations. Your problem is completely solved." He intentionally emphasized the word, completely. Yuan Yang felt a bit irritated. "Can you shut up for a moment?" Peng Fang showed a meaningful smile. "If this trick really works, I'm utterly impressed." Peng Fang continued to ask, "What do you plan to do in the future? You two see each other all the time." Yuan Yang replied somewhat bewildered, "I don't know." After Yuan Yang left the bathroom, the doctor placed a bottle of ointment on the bedside table, advising Yuan Yang to apply it twice a day after cleaning, and no physical activity for 10 days, the doctor added. Yuan Yang's cheeks felt a bit warm, and the doctor further commented, "This matter should not be overdone, it's harmful to both body and mind." Peng Fang barely held back his laughter, almost hurting himself internally. After the doctor left, Yuan Yang wanted to kick Peng Fang out too. Or else this guy would keep teasing him, too annoying. As Peng Fang passed by the table, he suddenly stopped with a sound. What's wrong? Yuan Yang asked. Peng Fang, as if discovering a new continent, almost lunged at the table. His eyes were full of doubts, and he was holding a small object. Isn't this the camera? The two quickly took it to Peng Fang's room. While connecting it to the computer, Peng Fang casually asked, "Didn't you see this thing last night?" Yuan Yang replied, "It's so small, how could I notice it?" Peng Fang ignored Yuan Yang's words. "This thing was facing you guys. It couldn't have recorded for long, right?" Yuan Yang glanced and saw it had already recorded for over 10 hours. Next episode preview, Yuan Yang gives Ji Qingpei fever medicine. After Ji Qingpei wakes up, he remembers what happened. Yuan Yang thought that after a night of contention with Ji Qingpei, he could finally become the king of the mountain. Although this incident was somewhat embarrassing, Yuan Yang still proved to be a responsible man. After the front desk sent over the replacement sheets, Yuan Yang moved Ji Qingpei aside and struggled to change the bedding. Seeing the feverish person in front of him, he wet a towel with hot water to cool Ji Qingpei down. Ji Qingpei looked quite disheveled, his body showing a weak pink, his moist eyelashes trembling slightly. Yuan Yang, seeing this scene, couldn't help but think back to last night, feeling a bit stirred. Yuan Yang, this young fellow, has a particularly strong sense of loyalty. To put it bluntly, he feels that anything he has marked is his territory. So, Ji Qingpei is his, and Yuan Yang is in a very good mood now, believing that Ji Qingpei has finally been subdued. He doesn't believe that Ji Qingpei could still resist him. After cleaning up Ji Qingpei, he covered him with a blanket and quietly watched him. It seems he had never really looked closely at this man before. Actually, Ji Qingpei is quite masculine, especially that confident and poised demeanor, which makes all the female colleagues at the company admire their president Ji Yu. Yuan Yang reached out and touched Ji Qingpei's lips. It was these lips that fascinated people. Yuan Yang felt his thoughts drifting again. He actually wondered if putting his lollipop into these lips would make it taste sweeter. He began to doubt if he was gay. Otherwise, why would he overcome psychological barriers and still feel unsatisfied? Maybe it's because the grudge was too deep. Being able to conquer Ji Qingpei was too tempting for him. Yuan Yang pinched Ji Qingpei's face and said, "Be honest with me from now on." After waiting for more than half an hour, Peng Fengban came with a doctor. The doctor looked very honest, and Yuan Yang was quite satisfied. As soon as they entered the room, Peng Fengfeng was shocked by the mess inside. "Wow, this guy can't be that tough, can he?" The doctor went over, sat by the bed, and pulled the quilt to the waist to check the marks on Ji Qingpei's body. Peng Fengfeng looked at Yuan Yang. "Wait, didn't that guy run away last night? Yuan Yang, was it you?" Yuan Yang glared at him irritably. Peng Feng came back to his senses, counting the balloons on the floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yuan Yang sighed. "Are you the reinforcements sent by the monkey?" Yuan Yang promised. "Shut your mouth." Peng Feng said with a cheeky smile. "Bro, will there be no more times when we chase girls together? You actually went through with it?" Coming up next, Yuan Yang, this little wolf dog, really claimed his territory as if everyone cares. Even the doctor was startled by him. Peng Feng's foul mouth was about to work its magic again. The distance is still a bit far, but as he said, it could indeed sell for money. When he and Yuan Yang saw the content on the camera, Peng Feng laughed at Yuan Yang. "Another classic show, huh? Yuan Xiao, if you take this stuff out to sell, you could make a fortune." Yuan Yang glared at him, closed the computer, and said, "Give me your computer." Peng Feng immediately said no, as it had important data. Yuan Yang, not wanting to continue arguing with Peng Feng, picked up the computer and walked away without looking back, saying, "I'll send it to you at home. The computer's mine now." Peng Feng threw a punch at his back in frustration. When Yuan Yang returned to Ji Qingpei's room, Ji Qingpei was still asleep, mumbling something unclear. Yuan Yang sat beside him, staring at Ji Qingpei. If Ji Qingpei could be more honest and obedient, Yuan Yang would be willing to treat him better. Now, Yuan Yang was completely deceived by Ji Qingpei's frail appearance. As he turned his head, he realized he hadn't applied the medicine to Ji Qingpei yet, so he poured the ointment into his hand. He hesitated for a moment before lifting the blanket and reaching in to apply the ointment on Ji Qingpei. Ji Qingpei moved uncomfortably in his sleep, and his tightly furrowed brow made him look somewhat pained. Yuan Yang's hand touching Ji Qingpei sent a thrill through him. Waking up at 4, Yuan Yang felt like a pervert. He hurriedly left, feeling depressed. He couldn't forget the delightful experience from the night before, thinking his current self was a bit ridiculous. Yuan Yang looked back at Ji Qingpei one more time. Feeling a bit flustered, he wondered how he was acting like a headless chicken. After calming down, Yuan Yang came out of the bathroom and quietly sat beside Ji Qingpei, playing a game. Just as the person beside him opened his eyes, Yuan Yang noticed and quickly put down the computer, staring unwaveringly at Ji Qingpei. At that moment, Ji Qingpei felt extremely uncomfortable, as if his body was falling apart. After a brief 2 or 3 seconds of daze, his vision regained focus. What he saw was Yuan Yang's face. His mind intermittently flashed with many scenes and images, all telling him that he had fought with Yuan Yang. No, he was beaten by Yuan Yang. In that instant, Ji Qingpei felt a surge of anger, but Yuan Yang calmly asked, "Are you awake? Are you confused? Do you want something to eat?" Ji Qingpei's eyes were lifeless. He turned his head, not wanting to deal with Yuan Yang. To Ji Qingpei, this was truly a nightmare. How could he have fallen to such a low, beaten by a nobody and then by a brash young man? Yuan Yang smirked, helped Ji Qingpei up, and made him drink water. Ji Qingpei just wanted him to stop. Never in his life had Ji Qingpei been so embarrassed. How dare Yuan Yang do this? In the next episode, Yuan Yang says the harshest words while doing the gentlest things for Ji Qingpei. We all know that Ji Tianxian has always been the top in the 188 boy group. This time, seeing him dragged into this mess by the little wolf dog is really hard to watch. When he recovered from the fever, his first thought was of the scene where the little wolf dog tricked him into eating meat. Despite his head feeling dizzy from the fever, Ji Qingpei's naturally calm and meticulous personality helped him to regain his composure. He had to recover quickly. With a clear mind, he needed to deal with what had happened. He was determined to make Yuan Yang regret his actions. He gave Yuan Yang a cold look, drank the water, and when Yuan Yang asked if he wanted to eat, requesting the hotel to send some food, Ji Qingpei closed his eyes and said, "Porridge, milk." After Yuan Yang picked up the phone and ordered something, the room was filled with a sense of achievement. Yuan Yang looked at Ji Qingpei's face with his eyes tightly closed, which was full of compliance and rejection. Yuan Yang, feeling quite uncomfortable, finally spoke up, "I've warned you not to mess with me. Who asked you to overestimate yourself?" After saying that, Yuan Yang realized that wasn't what he intended to say. He regretted it, feeling like he shouldn't have said that. Yuan Yang awkwardly touched his head to cover up his embarrassment. Ji Qingpei opened his eyes, glared at him coldly, and said, "Didn't you find me disgusting? Mr. Yuan, in order to retaliate against me, you even sacrificed yourself. That's really commendable." Yuan Yang was unable to save face. This was something he couldn't explain. He had never had any thoughts about chrysanthemums, so how could he not control himself and rush into this with Ji Qingpei? Ji Qingpei, sitting up slightly with a cold and piercing gaze, said, "Mr. Yuan, that was a good move. You win this round." Enduring his discomfort, Ji Qingpei continued to ask Yuan Yang, "What do you want?" Yuan Yang was stunned by the question. What did he want? Initially, he was just annoyed by Ji Qingpei's constant control over him, and it was Ji Qingpei's repeated provocations that made him want to teach Ji Qingpei a lesson. Now that he had taken his revenge and let off steam, what did he want now? Actually, life at the company wasn't that bad. He didn't know how to answer and could only mumble, "Just leave me alone from now on." Ji Qingpei responded without hesitation, "Fine, I won't bother with you anymore. You don't have to drive me to and from work. Do whatever you want. Are you satisfied now?" Yuan Yang frowned and replied, "I will drive you." Ji Qingpei paid no attention to Yuan Yang. As he walked past Yuan Yang, he mockingly said, "How dare I trouble Mr. Yuan?" This was Ji Qingpei's phone ringing. It was Zhao Yuan calling. Yuan Yang watched as Ji Qingpei chatted with the person on the other end, sharing heartfelt and caring words, talking about all sorts of household matters. Yuan Yang watched Ji Qingpei's face always with a warm smile. He stared at Ji Qingpei closely, unable to believe that Ji Qingpei could speak to someone so gently. In the next episode preview, Yuan Yang is jealous of Yuan Yuan. Ji Qingpei doesn't want to pay attention to it, and also about the relationship between Yi and Yuan Yang. The little wolf dog is jealous. This unexpected jealousy made Ji Qingpei a bit caught off guard. Ji Qingpei said, "It's me, all of you move aside." In the last episode, Ji Qingpei's ex called, and after Xu Heng asked warmly, Yuan Yang had never seen the gentle side of Ji Qingpei, and was a bit unsettled. After Ji Qingpei hung up the phone, Yuan Yang coldly asked, "Which lover was that?" Speaking so tenderly, Ji Qingpei put the phone aside and said indifferently, "It's none of your business." Ji Qingpei continued, "You don't need to pick me up anymore. I will explain to Yuan Dong. I am not qualified enough to educate employees, you can go ahead and excel." A fire rose in Yuan Yang's heart. "Fine, I'll just wait for my dad to let me go. You think I enjoy being around you all day?" Ji Qingpei sneered to himself, thinking that the advantage he gave to Ji Qingpei wasn't for nothing. If he doesn't get something back from Yuan Yang, he won't be satisfied. Yuan Yang picked up the phone placed beside Ji Qingpei with a determined look. Ji Qingpei was startled. What are you doing? Ji Qingpei quickly grabbed Yuan Yang's hand and said, give me my phone. Yuan Yang quickly swiped the phone and opened the call log to see a contact named Yuan, clearly a woman's name. He couldn't understand, wasn't Ji Qingpei supposed to be into men? Could he have a girlfriend? Yuan Yang raised an eyebrow. Yuan, so intimate, huh? Aren't you into men? Why are you involved with a woman? Ji Qingpei coldly replied, what does that have to do with you? He smiled slightly. Young Master Yuan, do you think just because we fought, you have a say in my privacy? Yuan Yang took his phone back in anger. I just wanted to see if you were trying to scam women. Ji Qingpei reached out and snatched the phone back. I'll say it again, it's none of your business. Yuan Yang, glaring, raised his voice. Let me tell you, I don't want to be burdened with that damn company for another day. You'd better make things clear with my dad. Ji Qingpei ignored Yuan Yang's ranting. He walked around Yuan Yang to the other side of the bed. Yuan Yang, irritated by Ji Qingpei's disregard, kept babbling non-stop by Ji Qingpei's side. Ji Qingpei sat back on the bed, turning his back to refuse Yuan Yang's intentions. Just then, the doorbell rang. Yuan Yang brought porridge and milk to the bedside. Looking at Ji Qingpei's back, he felt annoyed and urged him to eat. Ji Qingpei ignored him. Yuan Yang went up and pulled him up, startling Ji Qingpei. I'll eat when I want to. Why are you still in my room? Yuan Yang was stunned for a moment. Ji Qingpei was awake, and Yuan Yang indeed found no reason to stay any longer. Yuan Yang angrily slammed the door and left. Ji Qingpei took a deep breath, gripping the blanket tightly. The pain on his body served as a reminder of the craziness from last night, tormenting him with vivid details he remembered all too well. He wanted to forget but couldn't. Next episode preview, Yuan Yang falls deeper into his obsession with Ji Qingpei, who is known for holding grudges. Having lived for a while, Ji Qingpei has always treated rumors indifferently. If it weren't for Director Yuan asking him to mentor his son, he would never have subjected himself to such servitude. When Ji Qingpei saw the incoming call from Director Yuan, he couldn't help but feel furious. This young wolf cub must pay the price, he thought, then deliberately coughed twice and spoke weakly. Hello, Director Yuan. His tone made Director Yuan sense that Ji Qingpei was ill. Ji Qingpei is not one to be trifled with. In a conversation that superficially discussed work and affirmed Yuan Yang, the main point was to confiscate Yuan Yang's car. Director Yuan, picking up on Ji Qingpei's feigned weakness, ended the call after a bit. This call significantly improved Ji Qingpei's mood. Indeed, making Yuan Yang uncomfortable was the only way for him to feel at ease. Meanwhile, Yuan Yang, who was kicked out of the room, was not in a good mood, sulking in his own room with his phone. Yuan Yang took a bottle of water from the small fridge, muttering to himself that Ji Qingpei was more likable when he was unconscious. Who's this Yuan? Doesn't he know Ji Qingpei's a rainbow? Accidental, my foot. At this time, Yuan Yang hadn't realized his own abnormality, he just felt irritable. When his gaze drifted to the table, the replayed computer was still on the desk. Yuan Yang thought the video couldn't be revealed yet, he had to treat it as the most important leverage. If Ji Qingpei dared to confront him again, he would make him pay. At this moment, Yuan Yang couldn't help but walk over and open the computer. By a strange impulse, he clicked on that video, caressing the screen like a lost treasure. If only Ji Qingpei were always like this, weak and pliable at his will. This reckless and wanton way of fighting made him want to try it again. Thinking of this, Yuan Yang broke out in a cold sweat. What the hell was he thinking? Yuan Yang closed the laptop, as if venting his anger, he punched it, thinking about the image of Ji Qingpei in the video, seemingly within reach. How could he suppress this? Meanwhile, in another room, Ji Qingpei had just hung up a call with Yuan Lijiang. He picked up a thermometer from the bed, intending to check his temperature. At this moment, the door was pushed open, and Yuan Yang entered with a doctor. Yuan Yang told him this was the doctor, and it was time for his injection. Ji Qingpei gently looked at the doctor and said, "Doctor, my temperature isn't high now, can't we skip the injection?" The doctor insisted on giving an injection for a quicker recovery. Yuan Yang noticed the porridge on the bedside table hadn't been touched and asked if he was playing around since he had asked for porridge. Ji Qingpei whispered, "I drink milk." Yuan Yang, exasperated, pointed at Ji Qingpei and started scolding him. "You're way past the age where milk can protect you, aren't you?" Then he rattled on with a bunch of things. The doctor looked at them, bewildered, probably curious about what their relationship was, speaking like friends but sounding like enemies. The doctor found it hard to watch. Yuan Yang, like an old mother, quickly changes the subject. "Did you apply the ointment?" Next episode preview, Little Wolf Dog is not giving face at all. Little Wolf Dog gets anxious. Awkward fruit from the awkward tree, as long as I'm not awkward, everyone else is. Ji Qingpei felt so awkward in Yuan Yang's subsequent actions that his scalp could have been used as a snowflake shower. Yuan Yang is aiming for the sky. When the doctor asked him if he applied the medicine, Yuan Yang showed his proud little expression. Ji Qingpei remembered wanting to strangle Yuan Yang on the spot. Yuan Yang just liked to see the defeated expression on Ji Qingpei's face. Yuan Yang commanded Ji Qingpei to eat. Ji Qingpei did not even lift his head or hand. When Yuan Yang reached out to snatch Ji Qingpei's phone, Ji Qingpei was startled by this sudden action. The moment Yuan Yang's hand touched Ji Qingpei's wrist, Ji Qingpei disdainfully flicked his hand away, loudly saying, "Don't touch me." Yuan Yang took a step back, his eyes filled with complex emotions, difference, struggle, and anger. Ji Qingpei sighed several times before he could suppress the overwhelming emotions and the urge to retch. Calmly pointing at the phone on the ground, Ji Qingpei said to Yuan Yang, "Give me the phone," as if Yuan Yang was being ridiculous. Yuan Yang kicked the phone aside, lifted the bowl of medicine in front of Ji Qingpei. Seeing Ji Qingpei looking at him coldly, Yuan Yang still sternly asked Ji Qingpei to drink the medicine. Then, Yuan Yang picked up the spoon and brought the bowl to his lips. Ji Qingpei's eyes flashed with reluctance. After arguing, "I'll eat it myself." "You can leave." Yuan Yang got angry. "You damn eat or not." Ji Qingpei actually smiled. "Master Yuan, I really can't eat while watching you. I'm begging you, please leave, okay?" Yuan Yang's anger surged up. He stepped onto the bed and sat directly on Ji Qingpei's legs, threatening, "Open your mouth, or I'll force it open. You choose one." Ji Qingpei's eyes flickered with flames of anger, but unfortunately, at this moment, he was too weak to do anything. He could only open his mouth and watch Ji Qingpei feed him the porridge. At this point, Yuan Yang's expression eased. His face was full of reluctance. Only Ji Qingpei knew how humiliated he felt. Drinking this bowl of porridge felt more exhausting than running 800 meters. Yuan Yang finally got off him. Ji Qingpei urged Yuan Yang to eat his own meal as well. "Don't stay in your room." Yuan Yang started acting shamelessly, saying, "Sorry, but I must stay in your room." Yuan Yang chuckled and said, "Let me in. That place is already rented out." "He's gone, and I have no money," Ji Qingpei sarcastically said, looking at Yuan Yang sitting cross-legged. "Young Master Yuan can't afford a 5-star hotel but wants to freeload? Isn't that beneath you? I don't care where you stay, but get out of my room." Yuan Yang responded shamelessly, "I told you I have no money and I plan to stay here tonight." Seeing Yuan Yang's shameless behavior, Ji Qingpei didn't want to help him. Mostly because they'd fought earlier and now he'd have to cover the room fee. It was infuriating. He felt so stifled. Yuan Yang was now like a clingy troublemaker shamelessly sticking to Ji Qingpei. Ji Qingpei thought to himself, "What did I do to deserve this?" After finishing his IV, Ji Qingpei removed the needle himself and tried to get out of bed. Yuan Yang asked, "What are you doing?" Ji Qingpei snapped, "I'm going to the bathroom." "Is that a problem?" As soon as Ji Qingpei got out of bed and his feet touched the ground, his legs felt weak and numb. His knees buckled and he was about to fall. Yuan Yang reached out and caught Ji Qingpei by the waist, holding him firmly. Ji Qingpei's expression changed as he struggled to stand, but his legs had no strength. Seeing Ji Qingpei's weakened state, Yuan Yang lifted him horizontally and said, "Fine, let me do it." Ji Qingpei turned purple with anger but didn't want to lose face, so he sarcastically said, "Since young Master Yuan is so enthusiastic, take care of everything else too." Yuan Yang carried him directly to the bathroom and let him lean on the sink. "Go buy me clean clothes and underwear, everything cotton," Ji Qingpei demanded weakly. For once, Yuan Yang didn't find his tone annoying and replied, "Fine, I'll get them." But when Yuan Yang showed no intention of leaving, Ji Qingpei angrily said, "Do you plan to watch me use the bathroom? Hurry up and leave," Ji Qingpei shouted. Yuan Yang leaned tiredly against the doorframe and indifferently said, "I'm keeping an eye on you. Don't want you to fall." Suppressing his anger, Ji Qingpei shouted, "Get out." Yuan Yang, with a smug expression, seemed to say, "What can you do about it?" Enraged, Ji Qingpei boldly opened his robe, ready to confront Yuan Yang. "I want to see if you dare to keep watching," he declared, starting his business nonchalantly. Yuan Yang stood by, watching. Ji Qingpei shifted suddenly, catching Yuan Yang off guard. Unable to dodge, Yuan Yang got his pants wet. Yuan Yang's temples throbbed and he gritted his teeth. "You got guts, huh?" Ji Qingpei adjusted his robe and laughed. "Oops, sorry about that." Hope you understand. Yuan Yang stared at the wet stains on his pants and shoes. His eyes started to blaze with anger. Looks like I didn't teach you enough of a lesson last night, Yuan Yang growled. Ji Qingpei retorted angrily, Yuan Yang, stop being shameless. Your method of dealing with enemies is drugging them and forcing yourself on them? I thought you were better than this. Guess not. Yuan Yang slammed Ji Qingpei against the wall. You can fight random guys, but with me, it's suddenly forced? What do they have that I don't? Haven't I satisfied you enough? Didn't you scream yourself hoarse after I fought you? Ji Qingpei trembled with anger and sneered. Whether I was satisfied or not has nothing to do with you. At best, it's just the effect of whatever you used. Ji Qingpei patted Yuan Yang's shoulder mockingly. With such lousy skills, where does your confidence come from? You're pathetic. Folks, this episode had me laughing out loud. Ji Qingpei mocked Yuan Yang's poor wrestling skills, saying he's far inferior to him. Ji Qingpei ridiculed the short-tempered puppy with the utmost sarcasm. In the last episode, Ji Qingpei marked Yuan Yang with yellow water. Yuan Yang, enraged, slammed Ji Qingpei against the wall. Say that again, I dare you. Ji Qingpei smirked. I don't repeat myself. Let's leave it for you to ponder. So, are you planning to strangle me or try forcing yourself on me again? Yuan Yang's face showed a mix of emotions. Both options sound good, pick one. Ji Qingpei sneered. I'd rather die, it'd be less painful. Yuan Yang was so furious that his eyes seemed to spit fire. Yuan Yang punched the wall, fuming. Ji Qingpei was infuriating. If not for Ji Qingpei's poor health, Yuan Yang would have taught him another lesson. The obedient and submissive image Yuan Yang had imagined didn't materialize. Instead, he said, fine, I'll let it go this time because you're sick. But try me again, and you'll regret it. Without hesitation, Ji Qingpei shoved Yuan Yang away. If you can't do either, then step aside. Ji Qingpei walked out of the bathroom, leaving Yuan Yang seething as he watched him leave. Yuan Yang felt Ji Qingpei needed another lesson. Back on the bed with his phone, Ji Qingpei saw Yuan Yang come out of the bathroom holding a damp towel. Yuan Yang suddenly reached toward him, prompting Ji Qingpei to ask, what are you doing? Before he could react, Yuan Yang pushed him onto the bed. Looking up at Yuan Yang's long legs, Ji Qingpei noticed his mischievous expression. Mr. Ji, it's time to apply some ointment. You seem too weak to manage it yourself. Realizing what was happening, Ji Qingpei resisted, grabbing Yuan Yang's wrist. I'll do it myself, he snapped. But Yuan Yang didn't budge, holding him firmly. Yuan Yang flipped Ji Qingpei over. Ji Qingpei struggled with surprising strength, almost escaping Yuan Yang's grasp. After a while, Ji Qingpei felt completely drained and glared angrily at Yuan Yang. Yuan Yang told him, be still. I'm doing this for your own good. Using the warm towel, Yuan Yang carefully wiped Ji Qingpei's skin. Meanwhile, Ji Qingpei mentally cursed Yuan Yang's ancestors. Preview, Ji Qingpei sarcastically tells Yuan Yang, don't fall in love with me. Yuan Yang, however, doesn't seem to understand his own changing feelings. Currently, his liking for Ji Qingpei has surpassed his dislike for him. In the previous episode, Yuan Yang pinned Ji Qingpei down to apply ointment, leaving Ji Qingpei shaking with anger. To Yuan Yang, it felt like some kind of intimate interaction. Leaning close to Ji Qingpei's ear, he whispered, Mr. Ji, did I forget to mention? You're truly irresistible. Ji Qingpei replied sarcastically, Mr. Yuan, don't fall in love with me. There are too many people who like me, you wouldn't even stand a chance. Yuan Yang retorted with emotion, stop flattering yourself. This was just a warning. If you dare cross me again, I won't let you off. Ji Qingpei glared at him and responded, Yuan Yang, don't be so quick to declare. This isn't over between us. Yuan Yang finished applying the ointment, threw the towel aside, and stood up. Indeed, this isn't over. If you're unsatisfied, ruin my life, or faint again. Just don't blame me for not warning you to save face. Then Yuan Yang took Ji Qingpei's wallet from his suit jacket. Looking at him, he said, I'll go buy you some clothes. Just stay put. Once Yuan Yang left, Ji Qingpei ignored his discomfort and got out of bed. Never in his life had he felt so humiliated and frustrated. He swore to make Yuan Yang pay. He angrily threw the bathrobe to the ground. Ji Qingpei swiftly checked out of the hotel and moved to another one. The first thing he did upon arrival was take a shower. Afterward, he felt much clearer-headed and thought about how Yuan Yang, penniless, might spend the night on the streets. The thought brightened his mood. Sitting at the tea table, he glanced at his phone and noticed several missed calls, all from Yuan Yang. There was also a short text message, you're dead. Ji Qingpei sneered as he read the message, then promptly deleted it. Still daring to threaten me? Just wait to pay the price, Mr. Yuan. Ji Qingpei stayed at the hotel for 2 days to recover and booked a flight back home in the evening. After landing, he walked out through the VIP channel. The moment he stepped out, Yuan Yang blocked his path, looking calm and composed. Yuan Yang strode over, snatched his luggage, and said, "Mr. Ji, I came to pick you up." Ji Qingpei raised an eyebrow. "I didn't ask you to. No need to be so eager." Yuan Yang leaned in and whispered near his ear, "Didn't I accidentally make you faint? Picking you up seems only fair, don't you think, Mr. Ji?" The displeasure was evident in Yuan Yang's tone. He smirked and replied, "It's only fair. But remember, whenever you meet me in the future, you should wear formal attire. Even a driver should look the part. Oh, and your little Hummer is gone, right? That thing guzzles gas. Don't drive it anymore. Consider it a contribution to environmental protection." In the next episode preview, Ji Qingpei and Yuan Yang discuss technical skills, and Yuan Yang suggests trying formal attire next time. Yuan Yang shamelessly started discussing wrestling skills with Ji Qingpei right at the airport. As the last episode showed, Ji Qingpei ditched Yuan Yang and recovered at another hotel for 2 days. When he got off the plane, Yuan Yang blocked him at the exit. Upon seeing Yuan Yang, Ji Qingpei was momentarily stunned but quickly resumed lecturing him to tone it down. Yuan Yang's facial muscles twitched briefly before revealing a toothy grin. "I'll make sure to remember Mr. Gu's lessons, even if it's during a wrestling match. I'll even wear formal attire next time," Yuan Yang added. Ji Qingpei smiled faintly. "Yuan Yang, if your skills improve, maybe I'll indulge you when I can't find a more suitable opponent. But for now, you should keep practicing." Smiling, Ji Qingpei walked towards the parking lot. Yuan Yang carried the luggage behind him, his eyes practically boring holes into Ji Qingpei's back. Once inside the car, Ji Qingpei suddenly asked, "Oh, I forgot to ask. How did you spend that night in Hangzhou?" Yuan Yang chuckled coldly. "Walking around West Lake. The scenery was nice." Ji Qingpei grinned mischievously. "Not bad. Free sightseeing." He glanced at Yuan Yang and added, "Have you been eating lately? Next week's payday, can you hold out until then?" Yuan Yang gripped the steering wheel tightly. "Lunch at the company, skipping dinner. Satisfied, Mr. Ji?" Ji Qingpei smirked. "That'll do." Yuan Yang leaned closer mockingly. "You've taken my money and my car. How about taking me too? Why don't you just take over everything?" Ji Qingpei nodded. "I'll talk to Chairman Yuan about it when I get the chance." Yuan Yang snorted coldly. When they arrived at Ji Qingpei's home, he grabbed his luggage and walked inside without looking back. Yuan Yang whistled at Ji Qingpei's retreating figure. "Not inviting me in? At least we've seen each other completely before. Or are you afraid?" Ji Qingpei turned slightly, squinted with a faint smile, and said, "Yuan Yang, I've always liked dogs, but not every dog belongs in my home." With that, he went upstairs without looking back. Yuan Yang stood watching Ji Qingpei's back until it disappeared. He was furious but restrained himself from rushing after him to teach him a lesson. After returning home, Ji Qingpei called Yuan Lijiang to discuss some work matters. The two also routinely exchanged parenting advice. On the phone, Yuan Lijiang kept saying that Yuan Yang had changed a lot and seemed more proper than before. "It's all thanks to you, Ji Qingpei," Yuan Lijiang praised. Ji Qingpei smiled insincerely and suggested, "Chairman Yuan, there's another great way to help him mature quickly." When Yuan Lijiang asked what it was, Ji Qingpei simply said, "Marriage." In the next episode preview, Ji Qingpei suggests to Yuan Lijiang to arrange a marriage for Yuan Yang, hoping it might finally free him from this clingy young wolf. But unfortunately, the young wolf is fiercely loyal in love. Ji Qingpei won't escape that easily. At this point, Ji Qingpei continued persuading Yuan Lijiang to set Yuan Yang up for a blind date. Yuan Lijiang, though surprised, fully agreed with Ji Qingpei's suggestion. After hanging up, Ji Qingpei poured himself a glass of wine and quietly pondered how to vent his frustration. Just then, his phone chimed, a picture message from Yuan Yang. Ji Qingpei's heart skipped a beat. Ji Qingpei's brow twitched as he opened a photo of himself sleeping, his face flushed and weak-looking from a fever. Along with the photo, Yuan Yang sent a message, "Boss Ji, you're more likable when you're not fully lucid, and your voice is pleasant too." Ji Qingpei knew Yuan Yang was deliberately provoking him. Their enmity was irreconcilable. The next day at the office, Ji Qingpei saw Yuan Yang fiddling with his phone and chuckled. "Seems like you're quite popular, never letting go of your phone." Yuan Yang retorted sarcastically, "Can't afford the phone bill. I can only receive calls, not make them. Happy?" Ji Qingpei squinted and smiled. "Don't worry, salaries will be paid tomorrow. Remember to buy a couple of thicker clothes, winter is coming." It would be a pity if you caught a cold. Yuan Yang, sitting casually on the sofa, replied, I'm not afraid of the cold. After getting my salary, I might buy some medicine for Boss Gu first. Does that anti-inflammatory cream work well? What's it called again? Gu Qingpei, slightly uncomfortable, hid his feelings and said, It's rare for you to care, I'll check it when I get home. While they were still bantering, a voice at the door announced, Boss Gu, your guest has arrived. A woman in her 30s with a dignified and capable appearance entered. Gu Qingpei greeted her enthusiastically. Oh, the beautiful lady has finally arrived. The woman apologized with a smile. Sorry, I was stuck in traffic for a bit. Then, Gu Qingpei glanced at Yuan Yang and commanded without any courtesy, pour some tea, will you? Is Xiao Yuan still standing there like a statue? Yuan Yang, obligingly turning to leave, caught the woman's gaze admiring him. This young man is really handsome. As Yuan Yang brought the tea, just reaching the door, he heard the woman say to Gu Qingpei, Boss Gu, then I'm really coming to join you. Gu Qingpei laughed heartily, warmly welcome. Hearing Gu Qingpei's elite-like conversation, Yuan Yang felt secretly nauseous, thinking, really makes me want to vomit. He talks without even blushing. Next episode preview, in Yuan Yang's eyes, anyone close to Gu Qingpei has ulterior motives. In Yuan Yang's eyes, Gu Qingpei is a hot commodity. Anyone who gets close to Gu Qingpei is labeled as having ulterior motives. At that moment, Gu Qingpei called Yuan Yang over to serve the tea, then smilingly introduced him to President Liu. This is my assistant and driver. Feel free to ask him for help whenever you need. President Liu came to the company with a happy smile, saying, We are all family here. I won't stand on ceremony with you. Yuan Yang watched the two chatting and joking, cursing Gu Qingpei in his heart for being shameless. At that moment, Gu Qingpei waved at Yuan Yang, gesturing him to leave like calling a little dog, go out, and let Zhang Sha come in after 10 minutes. Yuan Yang was so angry, he almost burst out and wanted to bite Gu Qingpei. After a while, Zhang Sha went in and then came out with President Liu, saying they were going to familiarize themselves with the company environment. Yuan Yang was extremely reluctant. This woman, who looked cunning and slick, together with Gu Qingpei, that hypocritical and crafty jerk, who knows what sparks might fly between them. Gu Qingpei, acting like a rainbow, calling every young girl in the company, little girl, or silly girl, had all the young women dizzy with admiration. With such a character that attracts bees and butterflies, she really needs to be dealt with. Yuan Yang was quite dissatisfied in his heart, even beginning to suspect that Gu Qingpei was a scumbag. Otherwise, why would he sound so warm with that woman on the phone? Yuan Yang couldn't stand it anymore. He didn't even knock, just pushed the door and entered. Yuan Yang sat down on the desk and accused Gu Qingpei, who was that woman just now? Gu Qingpei, without even lifting his head, replied, the newly hired HR director. She has a lot of talent resources, and she is quite expensive. Yuan Yang glared at him and burst out laughing. How expensive that you had to subsidize her. Gu Qingpei smirked. Director Yuan is really considerate, trying to ensure that his incompetent son won't ruin his legacy in the future. Just keep up this attitude, it's good. Knowing nothing, you live a happier life. Yuan Yang glared fiercely and shouted, you don't need to mock me. I was never interested in these things. It's him forcing me to do it. It's already good enough that I haven't walked away. Gu Qingpei just responded with an, oh, and didn't plan to engage further. Instead he was pondering over some documents. Yuan Yang, unable to hold back, still asked, the one who called you that day, was it that Mr. Liu? Gu Qingpei didn't even look at him, ignoring his presence, holding the documents but with half-closed eyes. Yuan Yang irritably strode to his desk, snatched the document from his hand, and coldly asked Gu Qingpei if he was indeed the one. Gu Qingpei mockingly replied that he was quite nosy, asking if he was the Pacific Police. At this moment, Yuan Yang was so angry with Gu Qingpei that he had a headache. In the next episode preview, Yuan Yang's jealousy was unnatural, but he was quite naturally jealous. Does Yuan Yang himself know? You've gone too far, Yuan Yang. You're not only thinking broadly about Gu Qingpei, but also managing broadly. The sourness of this jealousy is almost overflowing. Gu Qingpei isn't afraid of you. You're almost flying to the sky. Awkward, right? You've made yourself uncomfortable, right? Gu Qingpei is very cunning and doesn't want to argue with Yuan Yang anymore. Gu Qingpei stood up and said it was time for lunch. He picked up his phone and dialed a number, inviting that beautiful Ms. Liu to have lunch downstairs. After speaking, he put his phone in his pocket and walked past Yuan Yang as if he didn't exist, striding away. Yuan Yang pounded the table, his expression extremely unpleasant. He felt like he was hitting cotton with force. When Gu Qingpei returned to the office, he saw Yuan Yang sitting on the sofa with a sullen face. His long legs were casually placed on the coffee table as he played with his phone. Ji Qingpei didn't plan to pay attention to him. This little puppy's emotions were too unstable, afraid he might bite someone again. He took off his coat, planning to rest for a while. In the lounge, Ji Qingpei had just changed into his pajamas and lay down when the door was opened. The lounge door wasn't locked, and Yuan Yang swaggered in. Yuan Yang's approach instinctively made Ji Qingpei alert. He sat up and asked Yuan Yang what he was doing. Yuan Yang, with a look of disdain, pulled off his tie and prepared to take off his jacket. I think I mentioned before. In the future, I'll sleep here, Ji Qingpei said angrily. I never agreed. Yuan Yang threw his coat aside. I don't care if you agree or not. Ji Qingpei instinctively stepped back. The body's memory has recollections. He indeed felt apprehensive about Yuan Yang's wild abilities. However, Ji Qingpei's instinct was not to back down. If he retreated, wouldn't it be obvious to Yuan Yang that he was afraid of him? Yuan Yang seemed to notice his slight retreat and chuckled. Mr. Ji, are you scared? Ji Qingpei, pretending to be calm, said, if you're here to sleep, and then closed his eyes. He no longer looked at Yuan Yang. After Yuan Yang snatched the quilt, there was a rustling sound, and Yuan Yang lay down beside him. After the two lay down, their inner thoughts were very active. Ji Qingpei thought about Yuan Yang's dislike for him, always feeling that Yuan Yang was retaliating. Now, the company probably wouldn't dare to act recklessly. As for Yuan Yang, he couldn't forget the fight with Ji Qingpei that night and even wanted to touch Ji Qingpei again. Perhaps conquering Ji Qingpei gave him a greater sense of achievement than conquering any other role. In short, he had the best experience so far from Ji Qingpei. This man who always provoked him seemed to only lose that annoying expression on his face when he was severely retaliated against. Yuan Yang turned over, looking at Ji Qingpei's back, crying and begging him for mercy. In the next episode preview, Yuan Yang wants to help Ji Qingpei check his injuries. Ji Qingpei tells him not to go too far. Continuing from the last episode, Yuan Yang shamelessly goes to Ji Qingpei's lounge for a nap. As he watched Ji Qingpei, Yuan Yang fantasized about making him beg for mercy in tears. Imagining that Ji Qingpei would dare not provoke him again, he hoped Ji Qingpei would never dare to provoke him again. Thirsty from the thought, Yuan Yang couldn't help calling out, Ji Qingpei. Ji Qingpei wasn't asleep, but he didn't want to open his eyes. After a long pause, Yuan Yang asked, have you been applying your medicine these past couple of days? Ji Qingpei still didn't move. Annoyed, Yuan Yang threw off the blanket and said, what are you pretending for? If you don't speak, I'll check myself. Shocked and angry, Ji Qingpei exclaimed, what are you doing? Yuan Yang's eyes gleamed mischievously, Boss Ji, I'm just checking if your wound has healed. Ji Qingpei's eyes blazed with humiliated rage, his face undisguised disgust. He clenched his fist and punched Yuan Yang in the cheek, who was caught off guard. Furious, Ji Qingpei, whether from humiliation or offense, hissed, Yuan, don't go too far. Yuan Yang froze, his cheek hurting, but Ji Qingpei's defiant expression made him even more uncomfortable. Yuan Yang grabbed his hand and roared, you dare to hit me? What's with the act? You go to the bar and hook up with anyone who catches your eye. How am I worse than them? Ji Qingpei forcefully freed his hand, his face looking ugly. I'm happy with them. Ji Qingpei rubbed his sore hand and continued with a sarcastic tone, as for you, you're far from comparing to them. Yuan Yang, consumed by rage, challenged, say that again. Am I worse than those MBs? Rising from the bed, Ji Qingpei retorted, you're humiliating me like this. Have some shame, will you? Yuan Yang also jumped off the bed. Why are you putting on airs? On what grounds am I, Yuan Yang, not as good as those people? He wanted to bite Ji Qingpei in his frustration and spat out, you unchaste rainbow. Ji Qingpei slapped away his hand and retorted coldly, whom I fancy or disdain is my business, what does it have to do with you? Suddenly remembering his conversation with Yuan Lijiang about arranged dates, he turned to Yuan Yang and said, go find yourself a girlfriend and stop bothering me. Yuan Yang grabbed him fiercely and said, you are my woman. Don't forget that you lost to me in wrestling. At that moment, Yuan Yang turned Ji Qingpei's face towards himself and whispered, President Ji, you really have a poor memory. I helped you out in a critical moment, putting out a fire for you. Now, you should allow me to start a fire. Next episode preview, Ji Qingpei feels powerless against Yuan Yang's shameless behavior. What should he do? Is it Ji Qingpei who has unearthed Yuan Yang's potential, or has Yuan Yang fallen for Ji, emotionally or romantically? Yuan Yang rushes into Ji Qingpei's dressing room, not only sharing a bed but also shamelessly plotting how to conquer Ji Qingpei. Watching Yuan Yang's dramatic tantrums, Ji Qingpei gets annoyed. He directly orders Yuan Yang to swiftly get out of his sight. Seeing Ji Qingpei's indifferent face, Yuan Yang is pained by his resentful gaze and releases him. Seeing Ji Qingpei let out a deep breath and escape like avoiding a monster, Yuan Yang gets somewhat angry. He doesn't want to bother with this ungrateful guy, grabs his clothes, and leaves in style. Ji Qingpei, feeling particularly exhausted, sits on the bed. That night in Hangzhou on a business trip was definitely the biggest humiliation of his life. Just thinking about it gives him a splitting headache. He wishes he could sew Yuan Yang's mouth shut. The relationship between him and Yuan Yang has now become very complicated. Today, at the company's regular meeting, Ji Qingpei didn't seek him out, probably thinking that he wouldn't dare to oppose him again. But he was quickly proven wrong. Ji Qingpei instructed his assistant to read a document at the beginning of the meeting. It announced that Yuan Yang, having driven a company vehicle without authorization and missing work for 3 days, caused significant impact to the company, hence a fine of 1,000 yuan, in addition to the deduction of the miner's fee and the vehicle's fuel costs. Upon hearing this, Yuan Yang's face looked as if he could eat someone alive. From the moment the document was read, he was glaring intensely at Ji Qingpei. Ji Qingpei showed a mocking smile in response to Yuan Yang's wolf-like gaze. As their eyes met, the other colleagues nearby, fearing bad luck, awkwardly distanced themselves. Yuan Yang, still unable to control his emotions, gritted his teeth and silently cursed Ji Qingpei for being shameless, waiting here to publicly embarrass him. How could Yuan Yang endure such humiliation? Unable to bear it any longer, he clenched his fists, wanting to leave the meeting room. Unable to bear it any longer, he clenched his fists, wanting to leave the venue. Seeing Yuan Yang wanting to stomp off, Ji Qingpei knocked on the table. I've said that the company's rules need to take effect. Using the company's car for personal matters and not returning it for 3 days has a very bad influence. Yuan Yang, you're fined 1,000, and that's letting you off lightly. If anyone else commits such a grievous error, they will be suspended from work. After finishing, Ji Qingpei leaned back in his chair, letting Jia Jia continue the announcement. Jia Jia loudly listed all of Yuan Yang's misdeeds. Yuan Yang also apologized to the company for 142 yuan. Colleagues immediately cast sympathetic glances, thinking that with a monthly salary of 3,000 yuan, he still ends up with deductions. Only Yuan Yang could manage that. After listening, Yuan Yang suddenly stood up on the spot. Ji Qingpei was deliberately slapping his face. Although Yuan Yang didn't care about this lousy company, Ji Qingpei severely criticized him in front of everyone. If it weren't for the crowd, he would definitely pin Ji Qingpei to the ground and teach him a lesson. Next episode preview, Ji Qingpei publicly humiliates Yuan Yang, who, when seeking a reason, is mocked instead. In Hangzhou, Yuan Yang forced Ji Qingpei to do physical exercises, which has been stuck in Ji Qingpei's mind ever since. Ji Qingpei isn't as impulsive as the hot-headed young man Yuan Yang. He knew that dealing with Yuan Yang was only a matter of time. After announcing Yuan Yang's series of inactions at the company, Yuan Yang had the urge to hit Ji Qingpei, but Ji Qingpei just sneered. Can't handle it, huh? You've got a strong ego. If you don't want people to talk about you, first, you have to behave properly. Don't you understand this simple truth? Yuan Yang looked at the sanctimonious Ji Qingpei, his face showing disdain as he turned and left. Watching Yuan Yang leave, no one in the conference room dared to breathe heavily, afraid to accidentally provoke this ancestor. Ji Qingpei let out a chuckle, saying it was his first time seeing such an irritating hairstyle, and found it quite amusing. He then told everyone to get back to work as the meeting was over. Not long after Ji Qingpei returned to his office, Yuan Yang came knocking on his door, furious. Yuan Yang slammed his hand on the document Ji Qingpei was reading. Ji Qingpei, you're ruthless, aren't you? Laughing at me for such a meager salary. Ji Qingpei looked up slowly, mocking him. You, young Master Yuan, couldn't possibly be short on this little bit of money. How about I lend you some, no need to pay it back. Yuan Yang cracked a smile. Alright then, since you've said so, I won't be polite. Ji Qingpei let out a sneer. You couldn't spend much in a day anyway. Food, drink, and transportation are all on the company. You won't freeze or starve. Yuan Yang leaned in closer. It's fine if I spend less. Weren't you the one who asked my dad to introduce me to some female friends? What's the point if I have no money? Ji Qingpei feigned surprise, playing along with Yuan Yang. I almost forgot about that. I support your dating efforts. If you can set it up, I'll foot the bill. Yuan Yang's face was full of confusion, and he blurted out without thinking, so any girl I like is fine? Ji Qingpei put on the attitude of a disappointed father. First, you have to ask if the girl is willing to go out with you. Yuan Yang, a bit unhappy, poked Ji Qingpei as a warning, if I can't get married, it's your fault. The two of them bickered back and forth, without knowing what they were actually fighting over. Finally, Ji Qingpei, no longer wanting to argue, gestured for Yuan Yang to leave and told him not to wander into the office for no reason. Yuan Yang had always been someone who acted rather than talked. Together with Ji Qingpei, he had broken his own record for arguing. Just as Yuan Yang was about to leave, Ji Qingpei reminded him to dress neatly for the dinner that evening and not to show up looking like a ruffian. Yuan Yang was fuming with anger. Later that evening at the hotel, Yuan Yang saw the detestable Ji Qingpei, who was greeting the leaders with great eagerness, talking about topics he is not interested in. He doesn't understand how Ji Qingpei could switch between these two faces. When he heard that his father would also come, he quickly stepped forward to greet him, and Ji Qingpei took the opportunity to introduce him as well. Ji Qingpei, what a sly person, didn't forget to subtly mock and overtly praise Yuan Yang during the introduction. Yuan Yang, feeling a bit unhappy, walked away. He usually looks down on himself, thinking to use himself to elevate his own status, but what does this Mr. Ji think he is? Preview of the next episode, Yuan Yang takes the drunk Ji Qingpei home. Will they exercise together next? Will this episode's fox fall into the wolf's den again? The young wolf sees the fox drunk and almost drools, but with the wolf dad there, he dismissively agrees to Yuan Lijiang's admonitions. Ji Qingpei gets into the car, possibly affected by the alcohol. He weakly loosens his tie. Just this action makes Yuan Yang's eyes gleam with a green light. Watching Ji Qingpei sleeping beside him, drool all over the floor, it's best if this guy doesn't sober up, which would make people furiously stubborn. The word, lust, is a knife on the head. How did Yuan Yang end up having thoughts about such a man? Why does he, every time he sees Ji Qingpei, want to develop a brotherly bond, especially now, really wanting to fiercely love him? Yuan Yang, finally restraining his bizarre ideas, drives the car to the downstairs of Ji Qingpei's house. Yuan Yang goes around to the passenger side, opens the door mumbling that his alcohol tolerance isn't even that good, yet you can really boast. Home at last. Ji Qingpei half closed his eyes, still a bit dazed. Being grabbed by Yuan Yang, he murmured in confusion. Yuan Yang half dragged, half carried him out of the car, while Ji Qingpei incooperatively demanded to be let go. Watching the swaying Ji Qingpei, Yuan Yang's temper flared. Walk? Are you even steady on your feet? After much effort, he finally managed to drag Ji Qingpei back home. The journey was exhausting. Though Ji Qingpei looked skinny, he was unexpectedly heavy. This was Yuan Yang's first time stepping into Ji Qingpei's apartment. He glanced around, the place was very clean, and everything was neatly arranged. Looking at the uncomfortable Ji Qingpei before him, Yuan Yang unexpectedly felt a sense of admiration. In this big city, Ji Qingpei had managed to start from scratch and buy a home on his own. Recalling how Ji Qingpei had just helped his father fend off drinks, Yuan Yang felt a bit unsettled. He had heard that Ji Qingpei had gotten into college entirely on his own merit, with no family background to rely on. Perhaps it was this man's smooth adaptability that had earned him his current status. Though Ji Qingpei looked thin, he was actually quite heavy, and Yuan Yang struggled to half support him toward the bedroom. Once on the bed, Ji Qingpei turned over, burying his face in the blanket and muttering, "You can go now." Worried he'd suffocate himself, Yuan Yang urged him to get up and take a shower. Ji Qingpei impatiently replied that he didn't want to and just wanted to sleep. Ji Qingpei said impatiently that he didn't want to bathe and wanted to sleep. Yuan Yang dragged him to change his clothes, saying the smell on him was quite strong. Ji Qingpei shook Yuan Yang off, telling him not to bother him. He closed his eyes with a frown and asked Yuan Yang to turn off the light. Yuan Yang was a bit shocked by Ji Qingpei. He insisted and pressed Ji Qingpei down on the bed, starting to undo the buttons of his shirt. Ji Qingpei suddenly grabbed his hand, looking at him with a bewildered gaze. Yuan Yang had no choice but to ask Ji Qingpei whether he was drunk or not. Ji Qingpei stared at Yuan Yang and said he wasn't drunk, questioning what Yuan Yang was doing in his house. Yuan Yang didn't want to waste words and directly reached for his belt. Ji Qingpei curled up, protecting his belt, and growled at Yuan Yang, "What are you doing?" Yuan Yang let out an exasperated sigh. Ji Qingpei might have misunderstood Yuan Yang's last remark, turned around, and squeezed out a few words. "Are you trying to take advantage of me?" Next episode preview, Ji Tianxian, are you playing with fire? With such blatant temptation, aren't you afraid the little wolf dog will swallow you whole? Let's discuss what you think Ji Tianxian is like. This time, it's not the little wolf dog's fault for bending himself. With Ji Qingpei's current dazed look, if Yuan Yang can resist, he's not a real man. Last episode, Ji Qingpei got drunk, And when Yuan Yang brought him home and tried to help him undress, Ji Qingpei misunderstood. Tian Qian thought the little dog was in heat again and needed an injection to control it, but the current Ji Qingpei, with a flushed face and a dazed look, made Yuan Yang space out. Although he didn't want to admit it, he indeed felt the urge to have another wrestling match with Ji Qingpei. But then Ji Qingpei said his technique was too poor and far worse than mine. Yuan Yang felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Was this kid speaking the truth after drinking? Yuan Yang was so angry he wanted to slap him. No man likes to admit he's inferior. Yuan Yang, looking down, asked, "You think my technique is poor, yet you seem to like it a lot." Ji Qingpei mumbled, "That day there were added ingredients, it had nothing to do with your technique." After hearing this, Yuan Yang wasn't angry anymore. Instead, he showed an ambiguous smile, leaned close to Ji Qingpei's ear, and said, "Today there's no added ingredient, how about we try again?" As he spoke, his hands roamed unruly over Ji Qingpei's waist. Ji Qingpei instinctively resisted. He flailed his hands at Yuan Yang and said, "No way, get out. Not in my house." Ji Qingpei's disdain made Yuan Yang very angry. He pinned Ji Qingpei down and said coldly, "You say I'm no good, why don't you teach me?" Ji Qingpei's eyes were hazy as he responded, "I ask you to learn other things, but you don't." Yuan Yang looked at him wickedly, "I just want to learn this." When his hand touched the skin of Ji Qingpei's waist and abdomen, the sensation was just as heated as he remembered, making him restless. Ji Qingpei instinctively blocked Yuan Yang's body from pressing down. Yuan Yang didn't give him a chance to escape. He pressed down heavily on Ji Qingpei and whispered in his ear, "Mr. Ji, I said one day we would wrestle in formal attire." Ji Qingpei's body stiffened. His face turned livid as he grabbed Yuan Yang's sleeve, just about to speak. Suddenly, he vomited. The air was filled with a strong smell of alcohol. Yuan Yang looked at the scene before him. His expression was colorful. He roared, and you could hear his cursing from downstairs, asking Ji Qingpei if he did it on purpose. Yuan Yang, with a face full of frustration, held Ji Qingpei as he walked out of the bathroom. His fantasy for the night was ruined. He chose to endure, washing someone for the first time in his life. He thought it would be quite interesting, but it turned out to be really tiring. He laid Ji Qingpei on the bed, and the exertion made him tired as well. He yawned profusely as he looked at the sleeping Ji Qingpei, resenting him for always finding ways to cause trouble. Finally, he lifted the blanket and slipped under it swiftly. Ji Qingpei's bed was very big, so they couldn't touch each other. Yuan Yang started off by keeping his distance in a huff, but he couldn't resist. He pulled Ji Qingpei close to himself, finding that only a sleeping Ji Qingpei was the most peaceful. Yuan Yang nuzzled his face into Ji Qingpei's neck and gently stroked Ji Qingpei's quilt, feeling that it seemed not too bad. Next episode preview, Ji Qingpei wakes up from a drunken stupor thinking he's fallen into a wolf's den again, but it's just a false alarm for precious Ji. What does the little wolf dog Yuan Yang look like in everyone's eyes? Apart from his wild energy, what else is there? Continuing from the last episode, Ji Qingpei got drunk and vomited all over himself, disrupting Yuan Yang's fun plans. After cleaning up the mess, Yuan Yang was also too tired and climbed into Ji Qingpei's bed to sleep. But this bed is not that kind of bed, so everyone should not speculate wildly. It's just a matter of brothers keeping each other warm. The birds on the tree outside the window are all paired up. At this moment, they wake up the person deep in sleep. Ji Qingpei opens his somewhat groggy eyes. He feels something heavy on his body. His hangover hasn't worn off, and his head is dizzy. His first reaction is that he brought someone home. When he realizes something's not quite right, he turns his head and sees Yuan Yang's profile. Yuan Yang is hugging him like a koala. Ji Qingpei explodes in an instant. Could it be that he fell into a wolf's den again last night? Expletives spill out of his mouth, and at the same time, he delivers a roundhouse kick. Yuan Yang is kicked off the bed, and as he lies on the floor, he's so dazed he thinks there's been an earthquake. He touched his bruised head, yawned wearily while sitting on the ground, and stared blankly at Ji Qingpei with a face full of question marks. Ji Qingpei tried to appear calm. He asked Yuan Yang how he ended up in his house, his trembling voice betraying his unease. Yuan Yang looked down on Ji Qingpei, who liked to pretend. He stood up and said that it was he who brought her home. He also complained that Ji Qingpei vomited all over him, and that his ruined clothes were worth a month's salary, insisting that Ji Qingpei must compensate him. Ji Qingpei also got angry and asked Yuan Yang if his brain was filled with water, arguing that a change of clothes would suffice and questioning the necessity of sharing a bed. Yuan Yang illogically retorted that he couldn't go home covered in vomit, and since they had already shared a bed, why bother looking for so many reasons? Ji Qingpei felt so infuriated that he was speechless, and with a headache, he waved his hand and told Yuan Yang to quickly get out of his sight. Let Yuan Yang quickly get out of his sight. Yuan Yang shamelessly said that his clothes have become rags, and it's so cold outside. Dressed like this, where does he expect him to go? Ji Qingpei squinted at Yuan Yang and told him not to question his intelligence. He wanted Yuan Yang to listen carefully. That night was an accident, and it will never happen again. I don't care if you're looking for something new or if you've suddenly got enlightened, it has nothing to do with me. Ji Qingpei, am not interested in your type. Don't think about me all the time. Yuan Yang showed a mischievous smile and said, Ji Qingpei, I'm indeed just after something new. I'm stubborn. If I haven't had enough, I want to keep going. I just want to recharge with you, so what's the problem? Where did I dissatisfy you? Is it that I don't look good, my body isn't good, or is it that thing not big enough? Do you think my skills are poor? Just teach me. Anyway, I tell you, what Yuan Yang has set his eyes on is his. If you dare exercise with someone else, I'll beat him up. Ji Qingpei was shocked, looking at Yuan Yang in front of him, momentarily speechless. Next episode preview, the puppy boldly asks Ji Qingpei to try being together. When the puppy is domineering, it's really cool. Of course, there's hardly anyone who can compare. Yuan Yang, who has just tasted the flavor of flesh, is unsatisfied. Ji Qingpei cannot drive away his persistence. As long as Yuan Yang hasn't had enough, only he can say he's done. There's no chance for Yuan Yang to share the meat. In the last episode, Yuan Yang provoked Ji Qingpei, saying he was just looking for something new. He also doesn't understand why he is so interested. Yuan Yang leaned closer to Ji Qingpei with a face full of interest, saying maybe it's because the usually dignified Mr. Ji is too different when exercising, making it unbearable. Ji Qingpei gritted his teeth, telling Yuan Yang to stop spouting nonsense. Yuan Yang leaned over and pinned him down. Ji Qingpei, you seemed quite refreshed after exercising the other day. Why are you pretending? We see each other 10 hours a day. It's convenient to work out together. How about it, join me. I won't bully you anymore, and we'll coexist peacefully, Yuan Yang said with a smile. Ji Qingpei laughed out of frustration. You little rascal, do you know who you're talking to? Yuan Yang grinned. How would I not know? The noise from charging can be heard next door. Ji Qingpei narrowed his eyes and sneered. You want to be my exercise coach? Yuan Yang confidently replied. Why not? If you're not satisfied with someone like me, how can you claim to like men? Ji Qingpei was almost laughing out of anger. There are so many types of men, you can't decide what kind I like. I just don't like your type, stop messing with me. Ji Qingpei tried to push him away, but Yuan Yang held him down firmly. Yuan Yang really was all brute strength. Yuan Yang glared angrily, you're the one messing around. If you didn't like my type, would you exercise for 3 hours straight? Stop faking it. If you don't like my type, it's fine. My dear seems to like you. I'm telling you, don't reject me, Yuan Yang threatened, glaring triumphantly at Ji Qingpei. Ji Qingpei's face turned pale. This crude brat, no wonder even a cunning old fox like Yuan Lijiang can't manage him. This kid is completely unreasonable, only knowing how to act rashly. Anyone would be infuriated. Yuan Yang smugly rubbed against Ji Qingpei, and as he did, he remembered his phone needed charging. Ji Qingpei looked at him with disdain. Yuan Yang provocatively asked, what's wrong? I am young. Ji Qingpei kept telling himself to stay calm. He said sternly, let me go first. Yuan Yang, determined not to give up, said, I won't. Ji Qingpei shouted, asking what Yuan Yang wanted him to agree to. Yuan Yang lifted his chin and said, be mine, then gave a look that dared Ji Qingpei to refuse. Ji Qingpei was so angry he was speechless and asked Yuan Yang if he had any shame. Yuan Yang scoffed, if you had no interest in me at all, I wouldn't force you, but you obviously enjoy it, yet you pretend. Now your treasure is disobeying, right? Ji Qingpei wished he could strangle that part of himself for betraying him. But it wasn't his fault. Yuan Yang kept teasing him with his treasure on his thigh. As a rainbow, how could he resist such deliberate provocation? Ji Qingpei helplessly asked Yuan Yang, if you insist on being a fitness enthusiast with me, it's not impossible. But I must lead. I'll teach you until you're satisfied. Yuan Yang looked incredulous at Ji Qingpei's words and asked if Ji Qingpei knew what he was saying. In the next episode preview, Yuan Yang clings to Ji Qingpei, domineeringly deciding regardless of Ji Qingpei's consent. The puppy's actions angered the fox. This fox is eating so brazenly, not caring about the fox at all. Eating once is fine, but endlessly? Does he want to suck the fox's marrow dry? Ji Qingpei didn't indulge Yuan Yang and deliberately disgusted him by saying he wasn't interested in someone like him. But if you're eager to be with me, I'll give you a chance. I've never tried someone like you. I can give it a try. Yuan Yang furrowed his brow in frustration and said threateningly, are you trying to go against the tide? Jiyu Qingpei told Yuan Yang to scram immediately if he was unwilling. Angrily, Yuan Yang's face darkened and he cursed Jiyu Qingpei for dreaming. Jiyu Qingpei was really running out of patience. He was hungover and got provoked early in the morning, which soured his mood. Yuan Yang just snorted with laughter, telling Jiyu Qingpei not even to think about it, mocking that Jiyu Qingpei's thing wasn't just for show. It could still function as it was supposed to, but he himself should forget about it. And of course, he warned Jiyu Qingpei not to even think about others. Yuan Yang warned Jiyu Qingpei that if he dared to exercise with someone else, he would beat them up. Jiyu Qingpei, unable to bear it anymore, raised his hand and threw a punch at Yuan Yang's face. Yuan Yang caught his arm and pinned him on the bed, sitting directly on Jiyu Qingpei and using his body weight to suppress him. Yuan Yang sneered disdainfully, you dare to fight with me? Jiyu Qingpei gave him a somewhat threatening look as if warning him not to go too far. Yuan Yang looked at the shame and anger on Jiyu Qingpei's face, wondering why he just couldn't fancy him. Was it really because his own skills were too poor? Yuan Yang's face tensed. Yuan Yang frowned and gritted his teeth, saying, if you think my skills are bad, I'll learn. Isn't exercise something you can practice? Yuan Yang chuckled lightly and said, thanks to you, I'm now broke. Who else can I turn to besides you? He tried to push Yuan Yang away with force, but Yuan Yang simply leaned down, pressing his whole body against him, fully utilizing his shamelessness. Jiyu Qingpei was so infuriated his head throbbed. Both of them were still in their youthful and fervent years. Next episode preview, Jiyu Qingpei tells Yuan Yang to stop fooling around, saying they really aren't a good match. It seems Yuan Yang has set his sights firmly on Jiyu Qingpei, or completely break down and kick Yuan Yang to the curb. The next morning, Yuan Yang, like a clingy puppy, shamelessly snuggled against immortal Jiyu. When Yuan Yang said those shameless words, Jiyu Qingpei feared this guy would cling to him. Jiyu Qingpei glared at the increasingly brazen Yuan Yang, gritting his teeth, telling him not to press down on him. Yuan Yang's brute strength gave Jiyu Qingpei a headache. He pleaded with this guy to go back. Yuan Yang, with his thick skin, ignored Jiyu Qingpei and asked if he was hungry. He went to make some food. Shameless people last forever. Yuan Yang had a good sleep and felt energetic. After spending more than 10 minutes in the kitchen, a delicious breakfast was presented in front of Jiyu Qingpei. Jiyu Qingpei was slightly surprised by Yuan Yang's speed. He could hardly remember the last time the stove was used at home, and it had been a long time since someone made breakfast just for him. Yuan Yang urged the dazed Jiyu Qingpei to taste it quickly. Jiyu Qingpei asked Yuan Yang, I didn't expect you could cook. Yuan Yang reminisced, when I first joined the army, I wasn't submissive to anyone. He was sent to the kitchen for 3 months. Yuan Yang reluctantly said, I didn't want to continue, so I added coal ash to the dishes every day. Jiyu Qingpei laughed, saying, so childish. Why not add a can of salt to ensure you never cook again? Yuan Yang retorted to Jiyu Qingpei's mocking, if it were you, you wouldn't last 3 days. Jiyu Qingpei lazily said, if it were me, I wouldn't be as foolish as you, offending the leaders right away. An indignant Yuan Yang barked at Jiyu Qingpei, yeah, you're the best at handling people, always putting on airs without feeling tired. Jiyu Qingpei wasn't upset, sarcastically saying that if he had a father like Director Yuan, he wouldn't have to work so hard. Yuan Yang was a bit displeased. He advised Mr. Jiyu to act like a person. He grew up to be 12 or 13 years old without knowing who his grandfather and father were, which led him to act like a rascal all day. Is it my fault? If you look at my younger siblings, their treatment is different. Jiyu Qingpei glanced at him and nonchalantly asked, I heard your younger brother is not in good health. After Yuan Yang said a bunch of resentful things, Jiyu Qingpei also took the opportunity to educate him, and Yuan Yang told him to mind his own business. Jiyu Qingpei glared at him, took a spoonful of porridge and put it in his mouth. But the porridge was too hot, and Jiyu Qingpei hissed. Seeing this, Yuan Yang hurriedly reached out and accurately opened Jiyu Qingpei's mouth. Seeing that nothing was wrong, he got up and poured Jiyu Qingpei a cup of cold boiled water. Jiyu Qingpei let out a breath. After drinking the water, he felt a bit more comfortable. Yuan Yang looked at his reddened lips, feeling itchy inside. He used the pad of his thumb to touch Jiyu Qingpei's lower lip and said, your lips look very. In the next episode preview, Jiyu Qingpei taunts Yuan Yang about not daring to do something himself. But the puppy's actions surprised him. Hey, Yuan Yang, you fool, let go of the fairy and let me do it. Jiyu Qingpei just burned his mouth a bit, but this kid was so nervous that he hurriedly leaned in to check. While Guo Qingpei took a moment to drink some water, this kid couldn't stop praising the heavens. His mouth looked so soft, I wonder how it tastes. Seeing Guo Qingpei speaking weakly due to illness, Yuan Yang got irritated and retorted, have you never kissed before? Yuan Yang steadied himself, seeming to recall that perhaps there hadn't been love. Guo Tianxian didn't let people off easily, insisting, we've exercised together, so how could there not be any? Ask yourself if you've kissed before. If it weren't for that night's taste, you'd be indifferent to men for life. The young brat shot back, there are plenty of men in the world, I don't have time to seek novelty with you. Go wherever it's cool and stay there. I, Guo Qingpei, certainly don't lack what you're offering. After confronting Yuan Yang, he turned to leave. Yuan Yang watched Guo Qingpei's retreating figure, his competitive spirit aroused. He was sure that nothing gave him a greater sense of achievement than conquering Guo Qingpei. Facing Guo Qingpei was filled with challenges. He quickly caught up in 3 strides, grabbed Guo Qingpei's hand, and Guo Qingpei, startled, shouted, what do you want? Yuan Yang didn't give Guo Qingpei a chance to resist and pressed him against the wall, his hot mouth covering his. Yuan Yang fiercely nibbled on Guo Qingpei as if he wanted to prove something. A sharp pain came from his mouth. Guo Qingpei had bitten him hard. Yuan Yang, in pain, let go of Guo Qingpei and asked, are you sincere now? Guo Qingpei furiously cursed him, asking if he was obsessed with him. Yuan Yang rubbed the corner of his mouth with his finger. If you say so, whatever I set my eyes on can't escape. Jiyu Qingpei warned him, if there's a next time, I'll cut off your tongue and stir-fry it. Yuan Yang's rebelliousness was unmatched. He pinched Jiyu Qingpei's chin and said, there will be many next times. I'll make you come to me willingly. Jiyu Qingpei was really infuriated by this guy. He sneered, you can try. Yuan Yang pulled him closer, saying, you look so annoying, just asking for a beating, but his hands roamed dishonestly up and down. Jiyu Qingpei told him to stop. Yuan Yang sneered, telling him not to get excited. If you really want to start something, President Jiyu, you won't be able to handle it. Jiyu Qingpei held down Yuan Yang's mischievous hand, saying with annoyance, I wouldn't mind being a coach. Yuan Yang looked at him somewhat baffled. Who gave you the courage to target me? Jiyu Qingpei pushed him away. Aren't you also daring enough to target me? Yuan Yang, thick-faced as a city wall, taunted Jiyu Qingpei. I'm not just targeting you. After I'm done, I'll make you cry again. I'll give you some time to get used to it.